Hello everyone, welcome to What If Goku Lost Tournament of Power and went to Highschool DxD Goku x Serafall movie. Before we start, please go support CJ8 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Goku is a male. This fanfic will have a completely different outcome than the original story. It will begin in the Tournament of Power saga, where our favorite warrior will suffer for his sin of not knowing how to control his actions, and we'll see how everything he loved and swore to protect is lost. But he will get a second chance at life, which will involve several events leading up to that second chance. Prologue: The Last Wish. Millions of years ago, even before the existence of this very universe, there were more universes, a total of 18, of which 6 were destroyed by an omnipotent and omnipresent God, who with just a snap of his fingers had the ability to destroy everything he wanted without the need for a minimal effort. His name was Zen or Sama, he who is the supreme leader, father of all the gods. In that inhospitable time there was a mortal with disheveled hair with a gaze and smile that reflected his soul, which was so pure that it was mistaken for the soul of a baby or an animal, coming from the most bloodthirsty race in his universe, specifically Universe 7 of the 12 existing universes. A Saiyan warrior who at his young age was sent to another planet, a planet recognized for its low power level and welcoming life, planet Earth. His sole purpose in that place was to conquer it, but due to certain circumstances he became the protector of that world, going through fights since his childhood, in which his level was insignificant compared to his enemies. But that did not stop our protective warrior, because his only goal in his life is to protect his loved ones, even giving his life on some occasions, so that his loved ones can have a normal life without the intervention of villains in their most precious world. But in one of his few battles, more specifically in a tournament, he not only had the weight of protecting not only his world but his universe, giving everything to avoid that fateful event. After that extreme battle between formidable warriors from each universe, Universe 7 emerged victorious, thanks to our raven-haired warrior and his teamwork with his battle companions. Initially, those 2 warrior helpers were his enemies, but that formidable fighter felt empty like a worthless being. The reason was simple: he had sacrificed the lives of other universes for the survival of his own. He was the one who proposed the tournament, having changed his ideals. Now he only wanted to face beings stronger than himself. He didn't care about the opinions or feelings of his friends and family. And upon learning that other universes existed, he proposed to the Omni King that they hold a tournament of power. But the Omni King had other plans for the tournament, transforming it from a tournament for fun into a tournament for survival. But that warrior remembered that he had a chance to return everything to normal, with some spheres the size of a planet. These spheres had sealed a formidable dragon. Its appearance was that of a divided being, golden in color, the size of universes. That dragon, when it comes out of its endless sleep, it can grant you a wish. No matter the power needed to achieve it, it will always grant you what you desire. The wish our crazy-haired warrior longed for was to return everything to normal, for all the universes erased by Zenasama to be restored to the existing world of nothingness. But he hadn't counted on something that would ultimately change his life. That wish couldn't be fully granted because it required the approval of the Supreme God. But that God didn't want that wish to be fulfilled. The God actually wanted to eliminate those universes he deemed useless. But the warrior pleaded with him desperately. Seeing the warriors beg for the wish to be granted, the God had an idea. His idea was for that warrior to suffer for his sins. How would he do it? Simple: he would grant him immortality and the non-existence of the Dragon Balls. How would that affect him? Well, being an immortal being, he would witness the death of those he loved so much and swore to protect. Furthermore, with the Dragon Balls no longer existing, he would be unable to resurrect his loved ones or undo his mistakes. Those gods and angels who were still awaiting that fateful moment took pity on the mortal, for that proposition was too much for a mere mortal. The gods were unaffected by it. As deities, they possessed immense longevity. But unlike mortals, they did not feel time, nor did they lack emotion. All traces of emotion were removed from them the moment they became divine beings. But for a mortal who has not been subjected to the limitations imposed upon a deity, he would feel the seconds, the hours, the days, even the centuries that had been granted to him. But the raven-haired man's response left everyone astonished. Most would have thought he wouldn't accept, but they were completely shocked. The warrior son Goku accepted the proposal and said he didn't care what happened to him as long as he saw others happy. He remembered his purpose from childhood, to be the protector of innocent beings. He would sacrifice himself for his own wrong decisions. Thus, the dragon granted the wish, and at the moment he did so, he dispersed into the 7 golden spheres, disappearing into the vast infinity of the now 18 universes that had been reconstructed. When the wish was made, the other universes that Zen-Osama had eliminated were also reconstructed, for the simple reason that it wasn't specified which universes should be rebuilt. From that day on, our protagonist decided to live a normal life until his loved ones departed for heaven or were reincarnated into another being. Years passed. and each Z fighter departed from the world of the living to the world of the dead. The warrior son Goku remained to watch as time passed, seeing his descendants perish and lose all trace of having ever existed. His genes disappeared and now he no longer existed, remaining only in books and legends of that warrior who surpassed the gods. But one day the warrior witnessed the extinction of his universe, and how from nothing another was created through a big bang. He remained expectant, becoming like a deity. He would not intervene in the affairs of mortals for anything in the world. He did not want to put at risk again the other lives that now survived in the vast universe. The immortal now saw how life regenerated. He saw how each planet in different places of the vast universe began its evolution, passing millions of years to see that there was a planet very similar to his old and nostalgic planet Earth. He decided to infiltrate the planet, wanting to see what changes it had undergone compared to the other. Upon arriving, he forgot to lower his power. Since he traveled through the infinite universe, he always remained at his highest level. He had grown accustomed to this state, but upon entering, he sensed supernatural beings approaching. In this world, humans weren't the only inhabitants. Other races existed, hiding in different dimensions to live normal lives. All the natural beings chose to remain undetected by humans and not interfere in human affairs, except for those who wore secret armor. These humans were beings blessed with a gift from God for their own protection. The spiky-haired one knew immediately what was happening, and in an instant lowered his maximum power to that of a normal human so as not to be detected. He thought that if they found him, he would be considered a threat, or there was also the possibility that they were bothering him to recruit him into their ranks, and he decided from the beginning not to intervene again in matters that involve life. But there was a certain girl who happened to be passing by and saw the ebony being approaching the planet, also sensing what she considered to be infinite power. This girl was taking a walk through the forest, feeling tired and unmotivated. She just wanted a moment of peace. At that time, there was a war raging between demons, angels, and fallen angels, all of which was causing her stress, and she needed a break. After all, even though she was a high-ranking demon, that didn't change the fact that she was a woman and a mortal being. She needed the forest breeze, but her rest was short-lived. She saw a being descending from the heavens and entering the depths of the forest. The girl decided to venture deeper into the woods, filled with curiosity, not only because of its immense power, but also because upon entering the depths of the forest, her energy diminished, and she could no longer perceive that immense amount of power. When she reached the place where she had previously sensed that power, she found nothing but a small crater, leaving her intrigued. She saw it briefly, but only briefly, since being a demon being able to see a little at long distances. She saw that it was a boy with somewhat unusual hair wearing a black and red suit and a blue sash around his hip. These simple details caught the girl's attention, as she wanted to meet the wielder of that power and find out who he was and what he was doing there. She had seen him descend from the sky and hadn't sensed any familiar energy from him. At that moment, demonic troops appeared to find the wielder of that energy, but it was too late and they didn't arrive in time. Among them was a boy with hair as red as blood and blue eyes, who upon seeing his friend Serafall immediately went to ask her, "Serafall, are you okay?" Yes, Sirzechkun, only I was completely paralyzed when I felt that power," to which Sirzech asked, "Did you see anything? Because the power was felt right here, we don't know if it's a threat or not." "Don't worry, I did see him, he was a little strange," thus giving her the description of what she saw of our favorite raven-haired boy. Serafall's friend was surprised because Serafall told him that she had descended from the heavens and that she was completely unfamiliar with the energy she exuded. He concluded that perhaps she wasn't from this world, so they all decided to return to their base. But while the others were leaving, Serafall went back to look at the forest where she had first seen the unknown boy and before resuming her walk said, "I hope to see you again someday so we can get to know each other," giving a slight smile and returning to the others. End of prologue. Chapter 1, Living Agains. After those demons left the place where the ebony warrior landed, that subject could be seen hiding in a bush with his power at a minimum, waiting for the demons to leave that place. Seeing that the army had left, he sighed and said, "Wow, it seems I was as clueless as ever. Vegeta was always right about my clumsiness." Laughing at his own antics. "But well, it seems this world isn't so different from the other worlds I've known. But it's much more like my beloved Earth." She said this with a somewhat melancholic sadness. "What should I do? I mustn't get sad. Milk wouldn't like that and would scold me for it," remembering what his late wife had told him before passing away. Flashback. Location: Pal Mountains. We see our warrior in a room filled only with the somber silence. The reason is simple. Our crazy-haired friend was witnessing the eternal rest of his life partner. The silence would be broken by that woman our friend was so in love with, that woman, the mother of his children. He had said, "Goku, I know you weren't a great father, you dedicated yourself to training and I always stopped you. But after your curse was imposed by your so-called friend, you stopped doing those things that characterized you, and to be honest, at first I liked it. You spent more time with your family, you worked hard, and I am very grateful for that, but I realized your suffering and I felt very bad for you. I missed that warrior who always trained and did things his way. So I'll ask you one last favor before I leave for my destination. Please go back to being the way you were before. I want you to smile, to have that innocent face I loved so much, and also I want you to rebuild your life. To which our surprised ebony warrior would reply, Milk, I love you and I won't be able to keep that promise. I don't know what I would do without you. Upon seeing this, Milk would simply smile and say, Please, someday you'll have to forget your past and look towards your future. I want you to be the person you were before, and the only way to do that is by rebuilding your life. This is the last wish I ask of you as your wife, as your woman. I want you to let go of that pain that torments you so much, I beg you. Upon seeing this, Goku would look at her in surprise. Milk, please don't leave me, you are everything to me, with tears on her cheeks. These were the last words that the wife of our protagonist would give. End of flashback. Well, now let's see what culinary wonders this planet has in store for me. Said with a very cheerful smile. But as he finished that sentence, Goku remembered a certain demon girl who had seen him arrive on the planet. That's right. That girl watched me arrive. I hope she didn't think badly of me. But to be honest, I felt that girl was very stressed. I hope she's okay. Saying this last part with a smile that hadn't been seen on him for a long time. Meanwhile, in a place far removed from the universes, a staff could be seen reflecting something or someone in particular. It was our warrior who was buying some food that he liked. Note. Here Goku had to learn the creation technique. The reason is simple. When traveling through the universe, he knew money would be a big problem, so he went to the Supreme Kais to learn this technique and avoid complications with money. End of note. The being observing the warrior was none other than the High Priest. He viewed the hologram with a smile and said, It seems that the mortal Son Goku will finally get rid of the curse that was imposed on him. At the moment of saying that, the Zen or Samas would arrive. What would they ask him? What is the High Priest seeing? Answering with a smile, I would say, It seems our damned mortal will have a second chance. Zen or Sama, upon hearing this, would say, I hope he manages to break that curse. I did it so he knows he needs to learn not to be impulsive, to learn to analyze things before acting deliberately. I also want to see if he can forget his past and take advantage of the second chance he's been given. Saying this last part with a smile that only Daishinkan would notice. On the other hand, returning to planet Earth, our ebony warrior decided to stay on this planet. It reminded him so much of his former home. It shared too many similarities with his old planet, differing only in some cultures and technologies. He was going to live on a mountain that would resemble Mount Pao, building a house just like his grandfather's. It had been a few months since the arrival of our favorite warrior. We will be at the end of the Holy War, and with the beginning of the war against the original demons. During this time, our black warrior decided to invest his time in one of the things he knew best how to do, growing vegetables. He got along well with his neighbors in the surrounding mountain area, helping the residents of the neediest sectors in any way he could. It should be noted that his vegetable sales were in high demand in the town. Little by little, our Saiyan warrior began to feel that characteristic sensation again. One day, like any other, Goku was meditating when he suddenly felt the energy of that girl who saw him. Instantly surprised because that girl was very weak and surrounded by very negative energies who were demons. The warrior would immediately teleport to the battlefield. While that was happening, the girl was very weak and looked ahead to see that all the demons were creating a very powerful magical force, which could destroy an entire city in its path. Upon seeing her death approaching, she would simply close her eyes to await her imminent fate, but out of nowhere she would remember that boy with strange clothes and silver hair. Note. Let's remember that in the prologue I said that our Saiyan warrior got used to always being at his maximum power, and he lowered all his power so that he wouldn't be seen. But even so, he continued with his transformation. It's almost the same as in the Cell Saga in the 10 days before the tournament. Goku would get used to his transformation since his body accepted it as if it were his base state. End of note. The girl would think, Heavens, I would have loved to meet you and know the mysteries you hold, smiling foolishly. But she would see that nothing was happening and open her eyes. The moment she opened them, her purple eyes would widen as she saw the man she had imagined before their supposed farewell. Imagine him wearing Goku Xeno's clothes. Seeing that he was wearing the same clothes he had on when I first saw him, the girl couldn't utter a single word. She could only look and give a small but very tender smile. With our Saiyan warrior, he would look at the subjects with a serious and very threatening expression. and say in a calm but otherworldly manner, "They had better leave before I get angry and show no mercy to my adversaries." His voice was that of a gladiator warrior, willing to do anything to get what he wanted, making the demons who were there tremble. They immediately composed themselves, and one of them, apparently the leader, said in a commanding voice, "That shouldn't matter, you disgusting human." This would make Goku's forehead throb not because he'd been called a disgusting human, but because he hated beings who felt superior to others simply for having a little power. The only one he'd ever speak to was Prince Vegeta, who, despite being a proud being, held that title because he was one of the strongest. Goku would immediately say, "I hate beings who feel superior for having a little power, so I will eliminate them." To which the demons would laugh at our warrior, putting their hands in front of their bodies to say, "Die, you dirty monkey." Launching light attacks at the same time, creating a curtain of dust, then beginning to laugh out loud, the leader would say, "Well, he was nothing but a charlatan. Where were we? We will certainly kill this demon who rebels against the demons descended from Lucifer." But at that moment they would hear a voice. Hey, was that all? All the demons, even Serafall herself, would be astonished by the display of power, at which all the demons tensed up and began to create magic circles of attack and launch them without thinking, but none of that would work. After the attacks ended, Goku would be seen without a single scratch. The leader would get scared and ask, "How come my attacks don't affect you? Are you perhaps the owner of a Longinus?" Goku, a little puzzled by the word Longinus, would reply, "I don't need weapons to destroy some simple insects," creating a Kai blast that would disintegrate all enemies in that place. After all that was over, Goku turned to look at the girl who had been in danger. He saw her standing motionless, his expression one of surprise. But he would immediately turn back to see his savior approaching, feeling a little frightened by the look in his eyes, but he would quickly recover from his trance. He shouldn't be afraid of him, after all, he had saved him from imminent death. Upon reaching the girl, I would ask, "Are you okay, beautiful?" This would greatly surprise the Leviathan, who blushed because it was the first time a man had complimented her like that. Normally she was told she was restless and wild. But that boy treated her differently. Yes, I'm fine, recovering from what just happened recently. Goku, seeing that, would smile and say, "Well, I hope I didn't get into trouble for killing those demons." Without further ado, the boy was about to leave. But he would see someone pulling at his sleeve, and seeing that it was the girl, he would be surprised by the Leviathan's sudden action. But I would ask, "Is something wrong?" The girl shook her head and, raising her gaze, looked at the raven-haired boy. Their eyes met immediately, remaining locked for a few seconds. Goku didn't seem to mind. He was surprised and captivated by those beautiful eyes, and the girl with pigtails felt the same way. But the girl immediately composed herself and said, "Thank you, I truly owe you my life for this act you just performed to save me, and also, would you like to know the name of my savior?" To which our Saiyan warrior would formally reply, "My name is Son Goku, and I would like to know the name of the girl I saved." Serafall was surprised by the name. It sounded familiar, but she couldn't remember it, and without further ado she revealed her name. "My name is Serafall Leviathan. Nice to meet you, Son Goku." Giving him such a tender smile that it would hypnotize the warrior, but he would immediately regain consciousness and say, "Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. I hope to see you someday," taking her hand off his sleeve, because the girl hadn't let go of it all this time. The girl would immediately look at him and with a smile speak, "Don't leave yet, please." Goku, a little puzzled, looked at her, waiting for the words of the now-named Serafall. She would just look at him and with a smile on her face ask him, "Could you come and see me one of these days? I think you're an interesting guy and I'd like to get to know you much better," smiling happily, waiting for a response. "Honestly, if that's what you want, I don't see any problem with it. I'll come visit you one of these days, and don't worry about telling me your address. I'll be able to tell where you are just by sensing your energy." Serafall, upon learning that he said yes, would only nod awkwardly, causing a drop of sweat to form on our Saiyan's face. After that short but comforting conversation, Goku would leave and disappear in an instant, surprising the girl with that technique. After a few seconds, Serafall would gaze at the vast horizon, a smile spreading across her face and a noticeable blush creeping up her cheeks, and begin to think. "So, Son Goku, I hope you keep your word. I can't wait to meet you and learn the mysteries you're hiding." End of chapter. Chapter 2, A New Disciple. Relaxing music to improve your reading. After that short but comfortable conversation with the She-Devil known as Serafall, our warrior went to the earthly world to continue with his now everyday life. On the other hand, the now well-known Serafall was heading to her base, a place where demons sought peace and condemned her race. This base was commanded by Serafall herself and some of her allies who will be mentioned throughout the story. The girl arrived at her base, but she was unexpectedly hugged by her best friend. After that hug, his friend began to speak. Serafall, are you okay? Did anything happen to you? I tried to go, but I felt a presence apart from the demons that was very powerful and I became very worried because I didn't know who it was, saying it in a very worried tone. When Serafall saw that her companion was a little agitated and worried, she hugged him and told him what happened. Truth. I was on the verge of death and I didn't know what else to do. I just closed my eyes and since I felt like nothing was wrong, I opened them. The moment I opened them, I was completely shocked. There was a boy in front of me, his presence was very intimidating and when I saw him more closely, I knew immediately who he was. That boy who saved me was none other than the boy who appeared a few months ago who had immeasurable power. Besides, he destroyed the demon army and its leader with a single attack, and what was most surprising was the amount of energy that attack released. She said this with stars in her eyes. When Serafall recounted what had happened, Serafall adopted a very serious and thoughtful expression. He asked himself, "Who will that person be?" I can't sense his energy. It seems that in addition to being strong, he controls his immeasurable power at will. Serafall, after filling his mind with questions and doubts, decided to ask more about the subject who was now invading his thoughts. And were you able to speak with him? Did he tell you what he was doing here and what his intentions were? Seeing Serafall serious and full of the enigmas that resided in his mind, Serafall decided to get serious and reveal the little information she obtained from the Ebony Warrior. Well, to begin with, we didn't talk much, to be honest. I only know that his name is Son Goku. Besides that, I didn't see any bad intentions. He was just concerned about protecting me and gave them a chance to leave, but they ignored the warnings he gave them and started talking badly about him and his race. When he saw that they ignored him, he attacked them and ultimately killed them. That's all. She didn't tell him about her date with the boy. She knew that if she did, her friend would go with the soldiers to protect her, and she didn't want her second date with Goku to be ruined. After she finished telling her friend the little information she had given him, he became even more thoughtful. He knew that this shouldn't be taken lightly. Coming out of her thoughts, she could only sigh and say, "Well, it seems he won't show his face and won't do anything that might affect him. I think it's best to be careful with him and not make him angry." Serafall simply nodded and then returned home. Once she was far from the base, she thought, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the date with Goku, but I didn't want to miss the chance to meet him. I saw sadness, coldness, and helplessness in his eyes. I don't know what happened to him, but it must have been something bad. Besides, he seems like a good guy, judging by the way he speaks and his respect." But thinking that made her blush immediately, remembering how formal and sincere he had been with her. "Wow, I'm always the one who makes boys blush, but now I'm blushing because I talked to him, although I must admit that Goku is very handsome. His features are very well defined and his gaze was intimidating but at the same time protective." As she said that, she turned even redder like those tomatoes freshly picked from the vast field. Serafall, finally calming down, could only say, "Heavens! I don't know what's wrong with me. It's the first time I've acted like this. Could it be? No, I need to get to know him first to be able to feel anything for him," arriving at her home and putting an end to her strange thoughts. Let's go to our raven-haired warrior. He was lying in his room, deep in thought, remembering what he had done all this time in his now new life. When he remembered a certain girl and how he saved her, he said, "Heavens! I believe I shouldn't have intervened on this planet. I promised not to cause any more trouble and to live only as a spectator. But honestly, I felt the need to rescue her. She's a girl with great potential and a promising future." He smiled at everything he felt for that girl. Finally, he sighed and began to sleep. He had grown accustomed to sleeping as he had before, doing so only out of boredom rather than necessity. Being immortal, he didn't need to sleep or eat, but he did those things simply out of pleasure or boredom. The next morning, our crazy hares resumed his now normal activities, which were cultivating and selling his produce. He finished his work quickly and decided to travel the world to learn more about its different cuisines, cultures, and religions. Reaching different places around the world, such as Egypt, Latin America, China, among others, traveling around for at least a full day. At the end of his trip, he decided to return home and sleep. The next day, our warrior finished his tasks and decided to meditate for a while to pass the time. Later that afternoon, he decided to visit the underworld. He couldn't see it clearly when he saved the girl with pigtails, but he found the underworld interesting. Arriving in a flash at the place I wanted to observe. Wow, this place looks a lot like Earth, only a little different. Noticing that the sky was red instead of light blue. Oh well. We'll see what this world has to offer. Starting to see the whole underworld through the skies. At the end of his expedition, the raven-haired man spoke. Apparently this world isn't very different from the earthly world. The only difference is that demons live here, nothing more, deciding to return home. But in the distance I see a very poor city. This city was in ruins, asking himself, what happened in that place? It looks like a battle zone. Upon arriving at the place, he saw all the needs that the children and their parents were going through, feeling very bad about it, saying, "Good heavens, what could have happened to this city to be in these conditions? But too bad for them, they'll manage somehow. As he was leaving, he suddenly saw a child being beaten by two demons older than him, approaching and listening to what they were saying. Demon 1 will kill you for not giving us your money. Demon 2, yes, give us all your money or we'll kill you right now. Image of the demons. The boy being beaten by them just cried and said, "No, please don't hurt me, this money is for my mother and me." The demons just laughed and hit the boy harder. Reference image. Upon seeing this, Goku could no longer contain himself and launched himself with great fury towards one of them, delivering a powerful blow to a demon that sent it crashing through several walls, leaving the demon on the verge of death. The other demons, seeing this, became extremely agitated and saw the boy who appeared out of nowhere say, "How dare you hit him, my friend, I will kill you." Drawing two swords, he charged swiftly and ferociously toward our warrior, but the moment the swords touched Goku's body, they shattered into pieces. The demon was left terrified and paralyzed. Upon seeing this, Goku simply gave the figure a cold stare and began to slowly walk toward the remaining demon. The demon became extremely agitated and started to run, but in the blink of an eye, our raven-haired friend appeared in front of it, startling it and causing it to fall to the ground. Seeing that he had fallen, Gyuko decided to launch a Kai blast that immediately disintegrated him, saying, "These kinds of people are the worst." I sensed his Kai and it was just too unpleasant. There was no second chance for him. After saying that, Goku saw the little boy, who was terrified to see the beating that those who hit him received. But he immediately became agitated upon seeing the man who killed them approaching his position, kneeling down and begging for mercy. "The boy, please don't kill me. I didn't do anything wrong, I was just carrying the money I earned working for my mother. She's very ill and I need the money to cover expenses." While crying on the spot. But the boy felt a hand caressing his head, and looking up, he saw the man looking at him with a smile saying, "Relax, I won't hurt you. I just came to help because I saw those guys trying to kill you." The boy calmed down upon hearing this and also gave him a smile that reflected happiness at knowing that nothing would happen to him. "Okay, could you tell me who you are? And why were those guys mistreating and robbing you?" The boy just nodded and told her what was happening. "Vera, my name is Serjorg and I am a Bale. The reason I am robbed is because, being a demon with no destructive power, I am humiliated by the middle and upper classes for being weak. These demons are part of my father's army, and knowing that no one protects me, they abuse their power by humiliating and robbing me. In addition to being banished from the Bale clan along with my mother for those same reasons, I dedicated myself to working to care for my mother, as her health is very poor because she suffered greatly from caring for me. She ended up in an indefinite coma, if only I were stronger." She said this crying helplessly. Goku, seeing him, took pity on him and hugged him paternally. The boy was surprised by that act and did nothing. He felt that the hug was like his mother's and he began to calm down. Seeing that he was calmer, Goku decided to speak. "I can see you're a good kid and you have great potential. You know, I also went through something a bit similar to your case." Surprising the boy with those words, "You see, when I was born I had very low power compared to others of my race. They mocked my father for having a low-class warrior for a son, but he believed in my potential. One day my father and mother had to leave me in another place very far away from where I lived. The reason? A man wanted to exterminate my race out of fear of a Super Saiyan, a legend from my hometown. Fearing the appearance of that individual, he decided to exterminate my race. I and a few others survived the massacre, but I knew nothing of it. I dedicated myself to training with various masters to become stronger. It was something I enjoyed, and my motivation was to protect my loved ones. One day, a member of my race appeared, the prince of our race, and tried to recruit me as his soldier. I refused, and a deadly battle ensued. He mocked me for being a warrior of the lowest class, but I told him the following. If a loser puts in enough effort, he might be able to surpass the power of a distinguished warrior. He mocked me, but he ended up losing because of me and my comrades. After that, I trained harder until I came across the one who wiped out my race, having a fight that was impossible to win, but I never gave up and fought to protect my loved ones. He killed one of my friends, making me become the warrior I so feared would appear in the legendary Super Saiyan form, having a very close fight that he ultimately won. The boy, upon hearing his story, was astonished by such a revelation. Goku, seeing this, smiled at him and said, "To achieve results in your training, you must consider your motivations, why you want to become strong, and you must always use that power for the good of others, not for a mediocre cause such as abusing your power against the weak." Serjorg nodded and hugged him for helping him keep his goals in mind. After that touching situation, our warrior decided to accompany his new friend to his house. He saw that it was a small cabin in the forest. Upon entering the house, he saw Serjorg's mother lying down with no sign of waking up. The young Serjorg greeted his mother, Photo of the young Misla. He felt that his mother always listened to him, and that's why he always greeted her and told her about his day. Goku, upon seeing her, simply smiled before thinking about what he planned to do. I know I said I shouldn't interfere in the life of this planet, but Serjorg is a boy with great potential who needs his mother more than anyone. He needs her motivation to live. Goku approached the bed where Serjorg was also lying and said, "You know, I see you're a great kid, and I'm going to help you on your path to becoming stronger. So this time I'll train you and help your mother heal." He said this with a smile that hadn't been seen on his face for a long time. Serjorg, upon hearing that, became very happy and asked, "Seriously, how will you do it, teacher?" Goku smiled and his hair began to change. Now his hair was red, as were his eyes, and he also lost some weight, making him look younger. He began to radiate a fiery aura like fire itself. Serjorg was very surprised by his new master's actions. Goku, having finished transforming, reached out and concentrated all his fiery aura into his hand, transferring it to the young woman. All of this was witnessed by the young Serjorg. After a few minutes, Goku removed the divine aura from the young woman, returning to his Ultra Instinct form. After a few seconds, the woman began to slowly open her eyes, and the first thing she saw was a boy with strange hair and silver eyes. She slowly got up and saw her son beside them. He was shedding tears of joy at seeing his mother awake, and without hesitating for a second, he rushed to her and hugged her, saying, "Mom, I missed you so much, it's good to see you again," hugging her tighter. The woman hugged him and gave him a sincere smile, saying, "Don't worry, I'm with you now, my little one." Then he turned his head and saw a friend who had a smile plastered on his face. The woman smiled and asked her son, "Serjorg, who is your friend?" Serjorg wiped away his tears and said, "Mom, he is excuse me, what's your name, teacher?" This elicited a few laughs from the ebony warrior. He said, "Hehe, I forgot to tell you when we spoke." Making a drop of sweat rise on the back of Serjorg's mom's neck. "Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Son Goku and I'm going to be your son's new teacher," surprising the boy's mother. The young Shedevil, after listening to him, introduced herself. "It's a pleasure, Mr. Son Goku. My name is Miss La Bale, it's a pleasure to meet you." Serjorg smiled and said to his mother, "Mom, he's surprisingly strong. He kicked the butts of some soldiers who tried to kill me. Besides, he was the one who healed you, Mom." Serjorg's mother was surprised by the new teacher's actions and, looking at our friend, gave him a small bow, saying, "Thank you so much for helping my son and me. I am eternally grateful for everything you have done for us. I truly don't know how to repay you." Goku smiled and simply placed his hand on the girl's shoulder, causing her to look up at the raven-haired warrior. Goku just smiled at her to say it. "Don't worry. I did it because I wanted to help your son. He's a great kid with a lot of potential and motivation. I know you've been through a lot." He told me all about his past, so that's why I'll help them both and take them to my home to begin training the little one. This surprised the young Shedevil. She bowed to him and thanked him for everything he was doing. Goku simply smiled and then said, "Okay, I think it's getting late. I'll come for you tomorrow. Until then, gather all your belongings so you can come with me. I'll begin training with Serjorg tomorrow." Miss La simply nodded with a smile. Out of nowhere, our raven-haired warrior vanished, surprising Son Goku's new friends. Serjorg looked at his mother and smiled at her, which she returned. "Let's go to Goku." Crazy Hair arrived home smiling as he used to say, "Wow, I thought I wouldn't intervene on this planet, but to tell the truth, I'm starting to feel what once defined me." The boy looked at his house and said, I think I'll have to remodel it so that we're both comfortable, starting to make their house shine, completely changing it." Reference image. Goku looked at her with a smile and said, "This one is perfect." Our black warrior entered the house and began to create various pieces of furniture and household appliances. When he finished, he saw his new home. It was a house with everything he needed without going overboard with luxuries, because he preferred a homey house to a luxurious one. After finishing the remodeling, he decided to go to his room. He took a shower and went to his bed to begin drifting off into a deep and comforting sleep. End of chapter. Chapter 3. Let us train. After our favorite warrior helped the Bale family in their search for a new opportunity for the youngest member of the family, our warrior was slowly beginning to open his eyes, opened by the sun that lay in its splendor, on the lookout for those who had not yet awakened. Upon waking up and stretching, Goku could only yawn before heading off to do his usual morning routine. After getting ready and leaving her new home, she could only sigh, remembering that she had to bring her new tenants. It was around 6:30 in the morning, and after reflecting on the previous day, she began preparing exquisite dishes for her new charges. Having finished his work, he decided to go and find them, raising his fingers, specifically his index and middle fingers, and placing them at the level of his forehead to begin to feel the vital energies of his new disciple and his mother. But she was greatly surprised to sense more signatures of vital energy around them, sensing negative intentions toward those she was protecting. Without hesitation, she activated her ability and immediately appeared at that location. Minutes earlier, we see our protagonists' new tenants packing their belongings into a small suitcase. Having finished their task, they could only wait for their new friend and disciple. Immediately, there was a knock at their door. Seeing this, the younger Bale, thinking it was his master, went to open it, turning the doorknob to greet him. But the boy was greatly surprised to see a man waiting outside. He was about to ask who it was, but he immediately noticed the seal on the man's chest, the Bale mark, confirming that he was from the Bale clan's army. The mark that tormented him for being weak, the mark he wanted to avoid at all costs. Unable to do anything, he could only be terrified to see more subjects behind the one already described. She decided to gather her courage and ask, "Good morning, what can I do for you at this cabin?" The man in front of him could only smile maliciously and reply in a formal manner, though his sarcasm was evident. "Good morning. The reason for my presence is simply that we just found one of my soldiers dead, and we also saw the remains of his comrade lying in the same area as my subordinate's body." Upon hearing her sarcastic response, Serjorg could only beg that nothing would happen to him or his mother. He didn't want to experience the loss of his mother again. From the cabin's resting room, Miss Law only raised her voice to ask Serjorg, "Who's at the door?" Upon hearing Miss Law's voice, the demon soldier grinned brazenly and began, well, I didn't know Miss Law was awake after that coma. Mr. Bale must be very pleased with the news. I'd best go and give her a warm welcome." Serjorg, recognizing who they were talking about, could only swallow hard and hope that what he now feared wouldn't come to pass. He quickly tried to close the door, but the demon immediately blocked his path and threw the little Serjorg out. He approached him to deliver a powerful blow, which would knock him unconscious upon contact with that act. But immediately I could feel someone holding his hand. Turning towards the new companion, he could see a boy with a very defined face who had an intense and very sharp look towards him, silver in color with hair of the same strange color. This gave a more imposing touch to his face. Seeing all of this in just a few seconds, the demon could only try to break free from the grip that held him immobilized. Unable to do anything else, he spoke furiously to the unknown man. "Let me go, you damn fool." Upon seeing this, Goku would simply smile maliciously and then say, "All right, I'll do it." Giving him a hard blow to the stomach, he dragged him out of the house and into the midst of the other soldiers. Seeing their leader in such a deplorable state, the soldiers growled furiously and quickly moved toward the assailant. Goku, fed up with the insanity of the demon soldiers he encountered, raised his hand and unleashed a Kai blast at all the demons in the area, instantly disintegrating them all. Only their leader remained, writhing on the ground. Upon seeing this, Goku approached the demon leader, lifted him to his own height, looked him in the eyes and said, "Tell your boss that if he messes with little Serjorg and his mother again, I'll rip off every part of his limbs until he slowly dies." Upon seeing the subject's piercing gaze, the demon could only respond immediately with a resounding yes. Seeing that it was over, Goku would simply deliver another blow to knock him unconscious instantly. Turning his gaze back to little Serjorg, he could only smile at him before going to the boy's mother. When Miss Law saw Goku arrive, she immediately asked him what happened outside. Seeing the young lady's concern, the warrior said, "Don't worry, they were just some neighborhood demons." Miss Law, not entirely believing him, decided to just nod her head. Goku, seeing that the whole show was over, spoke, "Well, I suppose it's best if we go to my house so you can settle in. Besides, I made a delicious welcome meal for you, so let's go quickly before it gets cold. Hold onto my back so I can carry you." Miss Law and Serjorg were puzzled by the raven-haired man's request, so they simply complied to see what would happen. Out of nowhere, he appeared in a very pretty two-story house that looked like an American-style home, but that didn't detract from its beauty. It seemed like a family home. Seeing their astonishment, Goku smiled and spoke, "Well, it's best if you go inside so you can eat and settle into your respective rooms." The two nodded and entered their new home, enjoying the exquisite dishes prepared by the raven-haired man, marveling at their unique flavors. This was to be expected. After all, Goku had traveled throughout the universe, savoring the diverse tastes it offered. After that comforting welcome, they would go to tidy their rooms, each taking their chosen place. After all this was over, Goku went first to Serjorg to talk to him. Upon entering, he could see the happiness that shone on the little demon's face. He approached him to speak. "Serjorg." Upon hearing his voice, the boy would stand up from a military posture and say, "Yes, sir," making Goku sweat a little because of the way he was talking about him. Sighing and beginning to speak. "Don't talk to me like that, I feel uncomfortable with the sir prefix. Just call me Goku, or if you prefer, Master." Serjorg, upon hearing that, would smile and say, "Yes, Master." Goku, relieved not to hear the term sir again, spoke. "Well, anyway, get settled in and familiarize yourself with the place today because we'll begin our training tomorrow morning." Serjorg would smile and nod his head very vigorously. Goku would watch this with a smile and then leave the place. As I walked down the hallway, I would pass Miss La's room where she sat gazing thoughtfully into the distance. I would knock on the door and speak, "May I come in?" Miss La immediately snapped out of her thoughts and looked at Goku to answer his question. "Of course, come in." Goku would come in and sit next to Miss La to ask her, "Are you okay?" Seeing the concern of her son's teacher, Miss La replied, "Yes, I'm fine. It's just that it's a drastic change. So many things have happened that I still can't process. First, I'm banished along with Serjorg, then I fall into a coma and leave my son to his mercy, and then you come along and help me and my little one. It all seems unreal, and I honestly don't know how to repay you for what you've done for us." When Goku saw what was happening to his new companion, he smiled at her and said, "You know, I didn't help you for ulterior motives. I helped you because I saw in your son a great determination and a firm resolve in his goals. I assure you that he will achieve great things and I will help him." Surprising the demon with her words. "And if you feel indebted to me, don't worry. You can help with the housework while I work in the fields and train your son so you won't feel bad. We're friends now and we'll help each other with our problems." Giving Miss La a smile, she hugged him for all the help he had given, beginning to shed tears, but these were not tears of sadness, but of happiness at finding that friend she had always needed in her life. After a few minutes in which Miss La confided in Goku, they separated and with a smile went to the kitchen to start making lunch. They had a good relationship, talking and doing trivial activities like having fun while helping each other create delicious dishes, where Goku would teach Miss La his peculiar seasoning. Having a completely beautiful day with her friend and student. As night fell, our new friends said their goodbyes and went to their respective rooms, falling into a deep sleep and immediately embracing each other in the arms of Morpheus. The next morning, Goku would wake up at 4 in the morning in a great mood, going straight to Serjorg's bedroom, waking him up with a single shout, causing his disciple to comically fall out of bed. Time jump. We see our ebony warrior at the back of his house, next to a Serjorg trembling from the strong wind that occurred every morning in those beautiful mountains. Goku would immediately create a turtle school combat gi with weight included to say, "Serjorg, put on this doji to begin your training." Serjorg could only nod before starting to put on his doji, but when he tried to grab it, he couldn't move it even an inch. He asked his master, "Master, this is too heavy." Upon seeing this, Goku simply replied with a neutral expression, "This gi comes with extra weight, approximately 200 kilos. So you must first get used to it, and to do so, you will do 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 100 laps around the area." Serjorg could only say, "Master, that's too much. I don't think I can do it." Upon hearing that, Goku would say firmly, "Too much. Was what you told me about becoming strong to protect your mother a lie? Do you really think that to become strong you don't have to make an effort? The only way to become strong is by doing what I tell you, and I don't want any lame excuses. If you don't, you won't be able to prosper so." Underway, Serjorg, upon hearing his master's words, mustered his courage and immediately put on his uniform to begin doing the exercises imposed by his master. This surprised Goku because of the boy's strong conviction. After completing those exercises, Serjorg would get used to his weights and would immediately go to his teacher for further instructions. Goku was waiting for him in his fields to begin the boys' next training session. When they were face to face, Goku spoke. "Well, I was surprised by how quickly you finished the exercises, but it's time to build your muscles. You'll have to harvest all these vegetables in an hour and a half, but you won't use any tools. You'll do it with your bare hands." Serjorg would simply nod and begin his next training session. He finished the harvest in record time, completing it in just 1 hour. Jumping for joy at having mastered his teacher's training, he was watched by the master with a smile. Goku would arrive with the little Serjorg and say to him with a smile, "It's good to see you manage the warm-up without much trouble." Upon hearing that, Serjorg would freeze at what his teacher had just said. Time jump. We see the master and disciple in a gigantic lake to which Goku speaks. "Serjorg, this is your next training exercise. You will have to swim 50 laps across this lake in your combat suit, so let's go swimming." Serjorg would immediately jump into the lake and start swimming, but when he was halfway across the lake, he would feel a current passing behind him, immediately becoming alarmed by what that thing might be. From afar, Goku would shout to Serjorg, "Serjorg, I forgot to tell you that I put a shark in this lake to motivate you even more." Serjorg, upon hearing this, would be frozen by what his master had just told him, immediately becoming alarmed and swimming like a true professional to save his life. After the exercise, Serjorg looked exhausted, with spirals in his eyes and a little ghost coming out of his mouth. Seeing this, Goku gave him energy to prevent him from fainting, then carried him on his shoulder and took him home to rest. Upon arriving at the house, we see Miss La worried about her son, giving Goku a murderous glare. Seeing this, Goku turns his head and begins to sweat profusely, worried about what might happen to him. But before Miss La could say anything, Serjorg composed himself and spoke. "Wow, that training was exhausting, but I feel lighter. Goku-sama really is a good teacher." When Miss Law saw that her son was happy, she could only sigh, smile, and give thanks that nothing had happened to him. After that scene, our protagonist decided to eat what Miss Law had prepared, surprising her with the amount of food her son was eating. After all that, they had a normal afternoon, talking about trivial things, the two oldest in the house, while Serafall went to sleep early because he still felt tired. As night fell, they decided to go to their respective rooms to sleep peacefully. Our warrior was lost in thought, staring into nothingness, in Goku's thoughts. He was thinking about how his life on this planet had changed, until out of nowhere he found himself in a very beautiful meadow with a cherry tree in the middle of all that beautiful place. But what stood out the most was the figure of a woman sitting in the lap of the tree, waiting for someone or something. Upon seeing that, Goku immediately knew the woman was his deceased wife, Kai. Without hesitating, he approached Kai and sat beside her. Milk could only look at him and smile warmly, relieved to see her husband in good condition. Goku looked at her too and returned the gesture. Without further ado, Milk spoke. "I see you're better than before, and that makes me very happy, my Goku." Goku would just look at her, let out a traitorous tear and say, "Milk, I'm glad to see you again. I don't know how I can see you, but this makes me more than happy." Hugging her immediately and crying in her lap, Milk returned the hug and stroked his head like a newborn baby. After a while, Goku felt better and asked his ex-wife, "Milk, how did you get here?" Milk could only smile at him as she calmly told him everything. Flashback. We see an elderly woman, Milk, sitting in bed waiting for someone. In an instant, someone appears before her, a very tall, slender being, strangely dressed with light blue skin and white hair. A halo around his neck further enhanced his striking appearance. At first glance, he was a perfect being, easily mistaken for a god or an angel, the latter being true. When the man arrived, Milk could only sigh and say, "Hello, Mr. Whis, thank you very much for accepting my request to come here." Whis could only smile at her and began to speak. "I know what you want, Madam Son, and I'll tell you that, if I may, I just need to know if you remain firm in your decision." Upon hearing that, Milk would simply say, "I know it's a rather crazy request, but I want to stay with them. I don't want to see them sad, especially my Goku. That's why I want to unite my soul with my loved ones. I want to be one with them, to be their conscience so that nothing happens to them and to help them in any way I can." Wise simply smiled at her because he already knew her answer. Wise summoned a staff with a sphere at the end, which he held in his right hand, and placed the sphere above the Saiyan's wife, causing her body to begin to glow. End of flashback. "And that's how I was able to be here with you." Goku would be surprised to learn what his wife did to be with him, and without further ado, he would hug her again, thanking her for her kindness. Without a doubt, for him, she is the perfect woman. Milk pulled him aside and began to speak. "Well, the reason I'm here is because I saw you're keeping your promise to go back to being the way you were before, and I hope you're happy with your new life. Also, I saw you helping a girl, and the moment I saw her, I knew you should talk to her. I have a feeling you two would get along really well, so you'd better go on that date with her." Goku would look at her, confused by what she had just said, but without further ado, he would accept his wife's request. Without further ado, Goku would kiss Milk, who would also return the kiss. Without further ado, that mental space would disappear, making our crazy hair return to reality, and without further ado, he would go to sleep with a big smile on his face. End of chapter. Chapter 4. The Appointment. A week has passed since Goku brought his charges, and during that time, our protagonist has developed a very good relationship with Serafall and Miss Law, becoming more than just a teacher and acquaintance, a very good friend to both of them. Miss Law told Goku about her life, about her Vapula clan, how she had to marry Lord Bale, and her banishment for failing to produce a worthy heir and instead bringing forth a powerless demon, whom she even considered a filthy human. Demons were arrogant by nature, but there were always exceptions. Upon learning this, Goku wanted to kill Serafall's father, but he had to restrain himself because he didn't want to interfere too much in this world. During that time, Miss Law wanted to learn more about Goku, about his past and what he was. She knew that Goku wasn't human, his energy wasn't from any race she knew. But Goku would get sad and always avoid those questions. Miss Law had to give up so as not to bother Goku about it anymore. It was clear from his eyes that he didn't want to talk about it. That week, Goku also taught Serafall several things. Although Serafall didn't possess magic, he had great potential with Kai, and his goal was to become strong. Goku taught him hand-to-hand combat and meditation for Kai control, which Serafall managed to achieve for a few moments, but he fainted afterward. Goku saw Serafall after waking up from his fainting spells going to exercise, and he also recommended that he should rest, as rest was also the most important thing for a good result. One ordinary morning, while they were eating, Goku remembered the promise he made to Serafall, becoming nervous and startling his companions. "Goku-kun, is something wrong?" Miss Law would ask, worried about her friend. Upon seeing this, Goku simply sighed and said calmly, "I'm sorry for scaring you, but I forgot something I had to do a while ago." "And what are you supposed to do?" Miss La asked, somewhat thoughtful about what Goku had to do. Well, before I met you all, I ran into a demon girl with pigtails who was fighting others of her kind, and I saved her. But before I left, she asked me to come see her sometime. I think her name was Serafall. Serajorg and Miss La were surprised by Goku's revelation. Mom, isn't that Aunt Miss La? Miss La simply nodded in agreement with what her son had said, surprising Goku with his disciple's words. Wait, you never told me you were related to Serafall. Miss La shook her head, leaving Goku even more confused. She's not related to me. Serajorg calls Serafallchan that because she's known Serajorg since she was a baby and was always playing with him. She and I are very good friends, but I haven't seen her since I was banished. I think she must be fighting against the pureblood demons. They're fighting for the position of new Luciferian Maoists since the Maoists died in battle against the angels and fallen angels. Serafall must be on the side of those who want to repopulate the race, avoiding conflicts with the other races for the time being. I know her too well, and that's why I say she's on that side. Goku listened intently to Miss La's words, because it was very valuable information. Since he didn't want to be so involved in this world, he needed to obtain information, and thanks to Miss La, he knew he shouldn't interfere any further. Miss La, after finishing telling about the battle taking place in the underworld, would look at Goku and smile mischievously, beginning to speak. So you're going on a date with Serafallchan. What do you like about her? Perhaps you accepted because her beauty captivated you. Goku, seeing Miss La's attitude, would become very nervous about his best friend's questions. Goku does know the meaning of a date, although he never had one with his wife. He always heard Bulma and Yamcha use the term when they were younger. It's not that, she just wanted to talk to me because my power intrigued her, and well, I honestly don't know what to tell her. But I'll have to go, a promise is a promise. So after lunch I'll go see her and find out what else she wants to know about me. Sighing because she didn't want to talk about her past. Miss La would smile and then tell her, alright, I'll believe you, but in my opinion you should dress differently when you're with her. If you go in your doji, people will look at you strangely for walking around like that in the street, even though you look hexy in it. I don't think it's normal to be like that in the underworld. We'll have to find you some clothes. Upon hearing what his friend said, Goku thought of an outfit that brought back memories, smiling at the memory that came to his mind. You know, I have the perfect outfit for the occasion. He placed his right hand on his chest and it began to glow completely, momentarily blinding Miss La and Serajorg. When their sight returned, they were amazed by their teacher friend's attire. Speaking first, Miss La. Wow, you look great in that new outfit. Also, you have to teach me that technique, Goku-kun, it's very interesting. Goku would just smile and then say, I wore this outfit once with some people who are special to me. It reminded me of the day I spent time with his wife and son during the 10 days of the tournament against Perfect Cell. Well, before I go, I'll give you something, Miss La, so you won't have any problems while I'm gone. He placed his right hand on her head. Miss La was surprised by her friend's actions, but before saying anything she looked at her son who was just smiling at her and suddenly felt a strong energy in her body, leaving her even more surprised by what she had just done. This energy I just gave you is so that when you go shopping, you won't have any problems with someone supernatural and you'll go unnoticed. It's like an energy barrier inside you. It prevents your evil energy from being felt, so your demonic power won't be felt. When you and I used to go shopping, I would put a barrier around us to be unnoticed. I think if you notice that it's the same thing, but now it's inside you. Okay. Before I go, Serajorg, don't forget your training, and I think you'll have to go with your mother if she goes anywhere to protect her. Miss La would ask Goku about a question she had. Goku-kun, but why don't you do the same thing to Serajorg that you did to me? Serajorg would tell him, don't worry, Mom, Goku taught me the basics of Kai, and I can lower my energy to a minimum so that I go unnoticed. Miss La would be surprised by her son's achievement and would simply smile warmly at him. Upon seeing this, Goku would also share Miss La's gesture. Okay, I'm leaving. I'll be a little late, so don't worry. I'll keep an eye out in case I sense anything unusual near you. He placed his index and middle fingers together and in the blink of an eye vanished from where he stood. On the other hand, we can observe a Serafall on a recording set worried because there was no important character for her recording. Heavens. The villain hasn't appeared yet and the show is about to start. Sighing heavily because things haven't been going well lately. Since the war against the original demons began, his only way to relax was by doing his show, but now even this was causing him problems. But out of nowhere someone appears in front of him, causing him to fall backward, alerting the guards of Serafall. When Goku saw that the She-Devil was on the ground because of him, he immediately helped her to her feet. I apologize for appearing in this manner, Miss Serafall, but it's the only way I could find you. Serafall was about to yell at the one who made her fall, but upon hearing his voice she was surprised and immediately raised her head, seeing that it was the boy who had saved her from death. She smiled immediately and became so happy that she unconsciously hugged him. It's good to see you, my savior. Goku would feel a drop of sweat trickle down the back of his neck because of the young She-Devil's attitude. Wow, I didn't think you liked me so much, Miss Serafall. Upon seeing his actions, Serafall would immediately blush and let go of her wild hair, then nervously reply to him. I'm sorry Goku-chan, but I'm glad to see the one who saved my life, and I'm also happy that he kept his promise. I thought I'd never see him again. He began to nervously fidget with his hands. I apologize for not coming sooner, Miss Serafall, but I had some things to do and that's why I didn't come. Before they could digest anything else, the young devil's guards would arrive, immediately surrounding Goku. One of the guards would speak. Who are you? Are you one of the allies of the pureblood demons? Goku would get serious and try to speak, but Serafall would speak first. Lower your weapons. He's a friend who saved me from death. His name is Son Goku. The demons would obey and apologize to the ebony-haired man. I'm sorry to judge you, Mr. Goku, but lately we've had problems with pureblood demons and we mustn't let our guard down. Goku would just smile at them and speak calmly. Don't worry, I know you must be on alert and I apologize for showing up like that. The demons simply nodded and then withdrew, leaving only Serafall and Goku. I see you're a little stressed. Is something wrong? The girl would look at him sadly, making a cute pout. The thing is, right now the actor for my show hasn't appeared and I need someone who can play the villain. Goku found the Shedevil's behavior amusing. It reminded him of his own behavior in his youth. You know, I could play the villain on your show if you want, of course. Serafall's eyes would sparkle like little stars. Okay. Producer, give the villain costume to my friend. He'll be the one acting with me. The producer would nod and take Goku to a dressing room so he could change properly. 15 minutes later, Goku would arrive on the set wearing a black armor outfit with gold and white accents. The outfit is the same as Bardock's when he was controlled by Toa. Serafall, upon seeing him, would be impressed by the outfit. It suited him perfectly. She saw that it was a very peculiar suit but the right one for a good villain, but he immediately realized that it wasn't the one he had planned to use in the recording. Goku-chan, that's not the outfit you were given. Where did you get it? Well, the truth is I just created it because I didn't like the other one. It was very uncomfortable, so I came up with this suit to help you. Serafall would smile at him because it was a nice outfit, but she would ask him, but how did you create it, Goku-chan? Hehe. It's one of my techniques. I'll teach it to you someday, Serafall-chan. Serafall would smile at him and they would begin recording. At the time of the recording, Serafall would ask, Goku-chan, you don't mind appearing on TV, do you? Someone might recognize you, don't worry. I can fix that in an instant. Suddenly, Goku's hair changed to a deep gold, surprising the devil with his ability. But upon closer inspection, she realized that not only had his hair changed, but his eyes had also turned an emerald green, reflecting anger. Furthermore, his features, no longer thin but now more robust, had noticeably increased in size. She would simply smile and begin recording. Goku would be the first to speak. Filthy humans, today will be the end of your existence. I will create a world without humans, a world full of peace and harmony without you. I will be the god of a new world. In Goku's mind, hehe, I never thought that talking like black would ever come in handy. Serafall would begin to speak. I won't allow that. The magical girl will be the one to destroy you and bring peace back to humanity. Starting to create magical circles of ice without much intensity so as not to destroy the place. Goku would do the same with some Kai spheres and they would begin to launch their attacks, starting to dodge Serafall's ice spears. The same was true for the young devil, who would begin to get excited and immediately go after Goku, starting to hit the young raven-haired boy. Goku would lower his power and speed to be at Serafall's level, also beginning to get excited. They began exchanging blows, trading attacks, but Serafall quickly appeared above Goku, delivering a powerful blow with her mace, causing him to fall to the ground. Immediately, Goku launched a Kai blast that struck the young woman with pigtails, sending her crashing into a small building. As Serafall emerged, she saw Goku flying and stretching his arms out from side to side, saying, You can't stop it. I will be the new god of this world and I won't let you interfere with my goals. Serafall would speak. I will not let you defeat me. My power is based on the strength and hope of the inhabitants of this world, and I will not let a false god destroy the hopes of the people. He began creating several magic circles, from which thousands of ice spears emerged. Goku broke out in a cold sweat upon seeing this, because Serafall was taking it seriously. Coming out of his mind, he said, I won't allow it, the new world is near. He began to create a giant ball of life energy, very similar to Frieza's attack. Upon seeing this, Serafall would empower her spears. Simultaneously unleashing her energy, the attacks collided, causing the energy ball to explode. Several impacts of collisions could be heard, each blow causing the recording set to rumble. The workers were shocked by the force of both, worried about the state of the recording set, but out of nowhere they felt a tremor. Upon seeing this, they were surprised to see the subject acting as the villain without half of his armor on the ground. Serafall would be flying above Goku and would speak. I will not let you win, justice will prevail and evil will be extinguished. This will be the final attack, the attack of humanity, starting to create a magic circle larger than the previous ones. Upon seeing this, Goku would say, I will not be defeated. Mortals must cease to exist. I will fulfill my dream no matter what. He would then place his hands at his right side and begin to recite a chant well known to all. HAA, humanity's final attack. These attacks were launched and in an instant they collided, throwing all the workers except the equipment because before anything Goku put barriers over them. After a few seconds, Goku stopped releasing energy, allowing Serafall to gain the upper hand. The attack collided with him, creating a dust barrier that, when it dissipated, revealed a badly injured Goku without his armor, wearing only his pants. "You won this time, but I'll win next time. I'll leave for now, but I'll be back." Serafall, upon seeing and hearing, would only say, "I will wait for you as many times as you want, but the power of humanity will never stop me and I will always defeat you." Goku disappears in an instant. Court. Upon hearing what the producer said, Serafall went downstairs tired but very happy about the recording session. As they descended, in the blink of an eye, Goku would appear, startling Serafall, who would fall backwards again. "Heh. Sorry again, Serafall." Serafall would just look at Goku with a pout. "You're very mean to me, Goku-chan." This made Goku laugh. After the recording was finished, the two went to their respective dressing rooms to shower and change. We can observe a very beautiful sunset of an orange color that reflected peace and tranquility. In that sunset, a couple can be seen sitting on a bench in a very beautiful park. There were cherry trees in the park, giving a very calming appearance. It even seemed like a somewhat romantic atmosphere. Goku-chan. "I never thought you were such a good actor, but that villain role you played was perfect. I hope we do it again. You're the best." This statement by Serafall would surprise Goku, who would only give the young devil a very warm smile, which at the moment of that act would make the devil's cheeks heat up, giving a small blush because of what the young raven-haired man had done, giving her a tender face that would slightly blush Son, who would be surprised by what he had done unconsciously. "Thank you so much for the compliment, Serafall-chan. I did my best to make the recording a success. Anyway, I enjoyed spending time with you and I hope we can do it again. I've never felt so alive." He said this somewhat melancholically, as the young devil noticed and immediately hugged him affectionately. "I don't know why you're sad, but whenever someone is like this, it's because of something they've been through. I won't ask you what happened, but I hope this gesture makes you feel better." Goku reciprocated the gesture. They remained like that for a few seconds, as if time had stopped for both of them, and when they separated, Goku spoke. "Thank you so much. In the short time I've known you, I've realized what a good person you are. Anyway, putting that aside, let's take a walk. I want to explore this part of the underworld." Serafall would just look at him happily, then unconsciously grab the young man's hand and pulled him away from where they were. "Don't worry, that's what I'm here for. I'll show you every corner of Leviathan territory." These passed through all the places in the Leviathan territory, including restaurants and popular spots in the area. After finishing visiting the places, our young lovebirds were walking towards the home of the young woman with pigtails, enjoying a very comfortable silence for both of them. Even during all this time, they never let go of each other's hands. Goku knew they were holding hands, but he left it like that. It felt better, but he didn't know why. Serafall broke the comfortable silence between them and said, "I know I told you I wouldn't talk about your past, but I'd like to know what you are. Because as you know, I saw you descend from the sky, and besides, I've never felt your energy in any other being. You're not of any race I've ever known." Goku would just sigh because he knew that sooner or later she would ask him about it. "Well, I won't tell you much about myself because it's a somewhat delicate subject. I'll just say that I'm from an extinct race, the last of my kind. The Saiyan race was dedicated to the trade and conquest of planets. This race was ruled by a tyrant who called himself the Emperor of the Universe. He wiped out my race and now I'm the only one left." Upon hearing this, Serafall was shocked by what she had just heard. Beings who conquered planets and someone who ruled them. She could only wonder, will he conquer this planet? But before she could say anything, our protagonist spoke first. "I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not like them. I'm different from them, or at least that's what I think." He lowered his head, remembering how he almost lost his planet because of his ambition to fight. When Serafall saw this, she knew she had opened a wound in the raven-haired man, so she hugged him without hesitation. "I'm sorry for asking you that. I shouldn't have been curious," feeling bad about what she just did. Before she could say anything else, Goku would hug her so she wouldn't feel bad. "Don't worry, I know you were dying of curiosity and it's okay, don't feel bad." Serafall would only feel the heartbeat of our raven-haired boy and blush as she felt the body of our protagonist, becoming nervous and separating herself from the crazy-haired boy. "Cough, cough, let's change the subject," she said, sounding a little nervous about what had just happened. This made Goku laugh at his friend's reaction, causing the young devil to pout cutely. After spending a few minutes talking about trivial things, our protagonist would arrive at the home of the girl with pigtails. "Well, it was nice spending time with you, Goku-chan. I hope we meet again and can do more recordings." She said this very happily, remembering her performance with Goku. "But before you leave, I'd like to visit you at your house. So if you could tell me where you live so I can come and visit you one of these days." Goku would smile at her and place his right hand on the head of the young devil, who would be intrigued by what her friend had done. But before she could say anything, memories of our raven-haired friend's address would come to her, surprising her with what had just happened. That place you just saw in your memories is my house. Come by any day now, you'll be surprised who else lives there. This intrigued Serafall. Well, I have to go now, it's getting late, I hope you'll come sometime. Serafall would only nod, but before Goku left she gave him a kiss on the cheek, who was surprised by what the demon girl did, but he couldn't say anything since he had already teleported away. Leaving a Serafall very happy with the day she had today, entering her home and greeting her family. On the other hand, we see Goku at home surprised by what his demon friend did, who upon entering saw Miss Law sitting and watching television. When the young lady saw her friend, she could only smile at him and begin to speak. "Hello Goku-kun, and how did it go?" Goku would return the gesture and answer. "Well then, Serafall is a very interesting girl, she's very interactive and positive." Miss Law nodded, and Ser Yorgshin, "He already went to sleep, I was just waiting to give you dinner." Goku would smile at her and begin to speak. "You shouldn't have bothered, you should have waited a long time," to which Miss Law would only reply, "Don't worry, it's the least I can do for you," making Goku follow our young devil girl. They went to eat and started talking about trivial things with their friend. After a few minutes, the two went to sleep in their respective bedrooms. With Goku, he was lying in his bed thinking about what he had done that day. Heavens. That girl was very interesting. She reminded me of myself when I was younger. I definitely liked her from the moment I met her, and I hope I see her more often. Said while yawning, he began to drift off into sleep and immediately snuggled into the arms of Morpheus. End of chapter. Chapter 5. The Unexpected Encounter. Following the events of a few days ago, such as the performance and revelation of our dark-haired friend, we can observe three figures in the backyard of a typical American-style home. Bathed in the bright morning light, softened only by the shadows cast by the mountains, these individuals were discussing certain events that would take place in the very near future, specifically, the training of the youngest of the three. But another person was also present at this training, the boy's mother, Miss Law. She wanted to observe and learn some of the tricks demonstrated by the third individual known as Goku. "Well, Ser Yorg, since I see you're in better shape thanks to the training I've given you, it's time to teach you the style I inherited from my master. This style has no weaknesses, it's perfect for defense. Its name is the Turtle Style. So you will do about 100 warm-up laps so I can start teaching you the style that I will pass on to you and that you will carry with pride." Little Ser Yorg would just nod with a smile, because at last he would climb the next of the many steps he would have to overcome as his body and mind surpassed their limits, beginning to do what his master had demanded. Our protagonist, seeing that his disciple had left, would turn his head slightly towards the other figure who was looking at him with happiness and a radiance reflected in his eyes. Upon seeing this, he would reciprocate the same gesture to begin speaking calmly. "Well, Miss Lachin, we won't do the same training with you as we did with little Ser Yorg. Since you possess magic and already have some control over your energy, it won't be difficult for you to use this different kind of energy. You see, this energy is normally used by the Supreme Kais, who wield a form of energy known as divine energy. You demons, like other supernatural races, possess a small amount of it, but from what I've observed during my time in this world, only the gods of various mythologies use it and not very effectively. You demons cannot use it, but you can perceive it because you coexist with gods. So in order to teach you how to create objects, we will bring this energy to the surface." Upon hearing her best friend's explanation, Miss Law was completely shocked by the revelation, her head filled with questions that now consumed her. But before she could ask her questions, our raven-haired friend spoke first. "I know what you're about to ask, and yes, I'll explain and reveal a little of my story. I've seen that you want to ask me about my past, but you're afraid I'll get angry about it, and honestly this is a bit delicate. But I don't want you to live tormented by not knowing anything about me, and since you've revealed and confided your story to me, it would be wrong of me not to reciprocate. So I'll tell you about an event that happened in my life. First of all, as you've probably noticed, my energy is unlike anything you've ever known. I'm from an extinct race called Saiyans who possessed considerable power. They conquered worlds to sell them to the highest bidder, but due to various circumstances, they were annihilated by a being who ruled them. At that time, I was a baby, and I was sent to another planet for conquest purposes. However, a blow to the head erased my memories, including the memory of conquering that world. To avoid going into too much detail, I became good and dedicated myself to protecting that world from various threats. During one of those threats, I learned about the hierarchy of the gods and met some of them: Kami, the guardian deity of Earth, King Kai, the guardian deity of the galaxy, and Supreme Kai, the creator deity of life in his universe. That's all I can reveal about myself." He became somewhat melancholic as memories surfaced while recounting a bit of his story. Miss Law noticed and immediately knew something had happened to make him so emotional. He began to take his friend's hands, who looked surprised by the gesture, their eyes meeting. Miss Law, observing those silver eyes, realized they reflected sadness, but even though they were sad, she saw their beauty in their own way. She began to speak without taking her eyes off her friend. "You know, I understand that something must have happened to you at some point in your life, and thank you for finally trusting me. I can't force you to tell me what happened, Goku-kun, but I'll tell you something important. If you don't share your problems and keep them to yourself, you'll live tormented and won't be able to recover from that event in your past. You must face and overcome your fears. You must learn to trust yourself again and not live tormented. That's what family and friends are for, and I consider you my friend. I consider you part of my family. You're the one who helped me and my son through the tragedy we went through. You mean everything to me. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to heal and my son would have died. So if you have any problems or feel bad about anything, don't hesitate to tell me. I'll be there for you through thick and thin. Goku, listening attentively to Miss La's words, knew he had to stop tormenting himself with his past. He knew he needed that moral support. He remembered all the support he had received from his deceased friends and knew that the help he needed was the support of someone else. He quickly hugged his best friend, surprising her with his gesture. She reciprocated the crazy-haired boy's affection. She knew they both had problems, and as friends, they had to help each other. Now that she was feeling better thanks to his help, she wouldn't hesitate to help him with whatever was troubling him. As they parted, she saw that the raven-haired man had a smile, reciprocating the gesture and deciding to speak. Okay, changing the subject, I want to learn how to draw out that divine energy you say I have, shooting stars out of her eyes because she really wanted to learn that. But before that, Serafall would arrive and see the two adults hugging and how they looked at each other smiling. He misunderstood everything and, believing they were declaring their love, smiled amusedly and went over to them. Master, I see you have captivated my mother. It seems I won't have to call him master anymore, but dad. He burst out laughing because he saw them both turn as red as ripe tomatoes and turn their heads away in embarrassment. This made little Serafall laugh even harder, but before he could say anything else, his mother gave him a whack on the head, creating a bump that made the Saiyan chuckle. Time jump. We can see Miss La meditating under a tree, since minutes before Goku explained to her that she should first fully control her energy, and then the raven-haired man would draw out Miss La's hidden divine energy, just as the ancestor did with Mystic Gohan. After a few minutes, Miss La managed to draw out her energy and maintain it for several minutes, growing tired because it was her first time drawing on Kai instead of magic. She opened her eyes, her training complete, and saw Goku teaching Serafall his fighting style like a father teaching his son, reminding her of the recent incident with Goku. Wow, I wish you were Serafall's father. They look so cute training together. After saying that, she blushed deeply, unconsciously reflecting on what she'd just revealed. Could it be that I'm falling in love with Goku? He's handsome and all, but I never saw him that way. Could it be because getting to know him better and being saved by him like a damsel in distress has made me slowly fall in love with him? But will I be able to make him fall in love with me? There, but what am I saying? I think being tired has left me vulnerable to my feelings. Laughing because he was already delirious, but knowing that what he had said unconsciously might be true. With Goku and Sarorg. They were both having a small sparring match to find out the points that Serafall should learn in the fighting style. Come on, Serafall, at least try to hit me. Serafall lunged with a fist, but Goku immediately dodged it and struck him in the back with a palm blow, causing Serafall to fall to the ground, already very exhausted from the fight. When Goku saw this, he knew he had to give the little one some rest. Serafall, take a 10-minute break. You must learn the style perfectly, because if you learn it, you'll become invincible and go far, kid. Serafall would simply nod in agreement with what his master said, for that was his dream. But he would remember that long ago his master and his mother had been embracing like lovebirds, and he would speak mockingly. And well, teacher, what do you think of my mother? She's pretty, isn't she? Upon hearing what his little friend said, Goku would unconsciously blush slightly because of what his disciple had just said and would ask him, "Why are you asking me that, Serafall?" To which the aforementioned would respond without hesitation. "My mom and you, teacher, have become very close since you met, and I noticed how happy you both seemed. So I thought you felt something for each other because I never saw my mom like that. For as long as I can remember, my mother was always sad and only smiled falsely so I wouldn't feel bad for her. But since she met you, she's changed radically. Now she spends time with you and I see her very happy. Maybe you don't realize it, but you seem like a married couple." Goku would be surprised by what his disciple said and would start mentally analyzing what he had just heard. He felt a warmth with Miss La as if he were with his deceased wife, but at that moment a certain girl with pigtails would come to mind who made him feel the same way. He became even more thoughtful, noticing what he'd sensed from both girls. He glanced to the side where the young devil stood, seeing that she too was looking at him, slightly blushing. When their eyes met, they stared for a few seconds, as if time had never existed, their faces flushed with obvious blushes. Little Serafall saw this and chuckled at his master's actions. This moment pulled Miss La and Goku back to reality, and they looked away, their eyes reflecting what had just happened. But when Goku looked away, he saw that Serafall was laughing and immediately knew why, causing a vein to pop out in the black-haired man's head. "So you're being very funny, Serafall. What if for every second you laugh, you get spun around 100 times across the giant terrain of Allah?" After finishing saying what his teacher had said, his laughter would immediately disappear and he would be overcome with absolute terror. "I'm sorry, sensei, I won't do it again, I swear." This causes Goku to let out a wild laugh that would make the young devil's hair stand on end. "No, I won't do it again nonsense, it was 7 seconds of laughter, so that would be 700 laps and you'll have to do them in half an hour. And if you don't finish them, you'll do them again, but twice as many as before. Underway, time jump." A young man can be seen exhausted on the floor, spitting a small ghost out of his mouth, being observed by Goku and Miss Law. Miss Law then asks a question. "Don't you think you went too far, Goku-kun?" Goku would sigh and answer her. "He deserved it for making fun of what made me reply," leaving Miss Law more than intrigued by what her son asked Goku. "And could you tell me what Goku-kun asked you?" Upon hearing his friend's question, Goku would turn his head away, blushing at the memory. It's nothing, Miss Law, I just have a question about the training." This caused Miss Law to resent Goku's actions. "Goku, you know you're bad at lying, just tell me in confidence what Sarah Jorgshin is asking you." Making our crazy hair even more nervous, he wondered internally why he was acting the way he was in front of her. If he had been the Goku of his past, he wouldn't have understood at all and would innocently say so without hesitation, but he knew that he was no longer like that, and that fortunately or unfortunately he already knew things he never thought he would know. Well, he asked me if I thought you were pretty and laughed when he saw us blushing." At that moment, Miss Law blushed intensely and looked away, equally embarrassed at having asked, making the scene somewhat awkward. Well, it's best to take Sarah Jorg home so Goku-kun can rest." Goku would immediately nod, and with a quick grab he would take Sarah Jorg to the house to avoid the awkward moment. Upon arriving home, Sarah Jorg would wake up on the living room sofa and immediately realize the awkward situation he had caused his mother and master with his teasing. But before he could say anything, a magic circle appeared, recognized by the demons present. From it emerged the pigtailed demon girl named Serafall, who upon appearing quickly wanted to pounce on Goku, but before she could, she saw someone she never thought she would see again with her beloved nephew. "My Miss Lachin, is that you?" That demon would shed a few tears upon seeing her best friend next to her savior. "Yes, Serafallchin, it's me." She also shed a few tears upon seeing her lifelong friend. Without waiting, the two of them would rush forward and hug each other tightly, as if their lives depended on it. Their tears seemed not to stop, those tears were tears of happiness. This was only seen by the raven-haired man and his young disciple, who were simply smiling at the event caused by the two Shedevil friends. We see 4 people in a room of the hunt of our young raven-haired boy. That boy was sitting, and on top of him was a young woman with pigtails who had him tightly hugged, jokingly rubbing his cheeks. "Thank you so much for helping Miss Lachin and Sarah Jorgshin, Goku-kun. You are definitely my saviorchin, you are like my guardian angel. I love you so much, Goku-kun." Goku, seeing his friend's actions, felt a pang of unease at how she had him on her lap and how tightly she was hugging him. All of this was witnessed by a demon, who was happy to see her friend again but also a little jealous of how she was treating Goku. She knew her friend well and knew that she only acted this way with people she cared deeply about, and that included her. But she decided to let it go for the time being. Sarah Jorg was also seen barely holding back laughter at the sight of his master being hugged like that. And to top it all off, his mother, feeling a bit jealous, couldn't contain her laughter any longer. She quickly retreated to her room so as not to disturb the adults present, saying her goodbyes immediately to avoid laughing and upsetting her master. The adults were left puzzled by what their son-slash-disciple-slash-nephewchin had done. Putting all that aside, Goku spoke. "Well, Serafall, it's nice that you came to my house. I thought you'd be here in a few weeks." "Well, Goku-kun, I wanted to spend more time with you. I was also intrigued by the surprise you told me about on our date, and I never thought it was about my best friend." "Heh, Serafallchin, I hope you still have such high expectations of me." Our raven-haired boy laughed nervously. "But hey Goku-chin, I also came because I wanted you to see our recording. It was a great success and got a lot of views." Taking out a CD to the surprise of both companions, and putting it on the living room television. Minutes later. "Wow, Goku-kun, I never thought I'd see you act, and from what I can see, you're very good," Miss Law commented, referring to the recording she had just watched. "Heh. It was my first time acting, but I based it on experience to recreate it, so I'm not that much of an expert at it." "Don't talk nonsense, Goku-kun, you're the best actor and that's why I wanted to talk to you. I was wondering if you could take on the role for my series. The children loved your character and even recreated your technique. I think it was Kamsenin, or something like that. It's ka mi ha Serafallchin." Our protagonist would speak with a drop of sweat on his brow due to the antics of the girl with pigtails. "Well, Goku-chin, will you accept the job?" Yeah. "Well, I don't really know, I think it depends on the work schedule." He became thoughtful because he already had a farming job and also had to train Sarah Jorg. "Don't worry about the schedule, it's only for a few days because I also have to be at the demon base for the final war that's coming." She became sad because she didn't want to be there. She didn't like being in wars because she knew the consequences they brought to the demon cities. This intrigued Goku because he didn't know the reason for his friend's change of mood. Why the long face, Serafall-chan? Is something happening at that demonic base? Well, Goku-chan, the thing is, I want this war to end already. It's causing a lot of destruction in the cities, and I don't want any more people to be affected by this stupid war. Making his companions look serious because the Shedevil was right. Unfortunately, the only thing I can do is provide financial assistance to shelters and food supplies for those affected by the war. This includes the income from my program. I don't want anyone to suffer because of me. Goku was surprised because Serafall's actions had deeply affected him. Upon learning all this, he reflected on the noble act Serafall was performing and made an immediate decision. Serafall-chan, I accept your request. I will be the antagonist of your show. Goku no longer cared if he was discovered. He knew he had to help this planet. He remembered his oath to his wife and the words Miss Law had spoken to him earlier, to stop tormenting himself with his past life. This would make both Miss Law and Serafall very happy about Goku's decision. Furthermore, Serafall-chan, I will help you with your cause. I also consider war to be stupid, so I will be your ally. This would make the pigtailed devil more than happy, seriously. Thank you so much, Goku-chan. Together we'll be the trio of musketeers and we'll save people. It made both Miss Law and Goku sweat because the devil girl's behavior was truly peculiar. Well, Goku-chan and Miss La-chan, it was a pleasure seeing you both. I'll let you know when we can meet to start the community aid. Say goodbye to Sarah Yorkshin for me. Saying goodbye to Miss Law and Goku, who at the end gave her a tender kiss on the cheek which almost touched their lips. This was only seen by a still somewhat jealous Miss Law. After Serafall said goodbye to both of them, she created a magic circle that made the devil disappear in an instant, only observed by Miss Law and Goku, who at the moment of disappearing entered the house of both young people. Well, Goku-kun, this day was a little different from usual, but it was one of the most interesting. Taking Goku's hands, their eyes met, their gazes locked. Miss Law knew she had feelings for Goku. These feelings grew slowly but surely, and she decided to reciprocate them. Now that Serafall had entered the picture, she knew she shouldn't hesitate. Serafall was her best friend, but she wouldn't give her free rein. She decided to take the risk. She didn't want to lose the raven-haired boy who had helped and protected her so much. Goku could only observe what his best friend was doing. It was the first time he had seen her act this way, but he said nothing. Although it was sudden, he felt good, just waiting for his already written destiny to unfold. Slowly they unconsciously drew closer to one another, observed only by the moonlight in the sky, awaiting the romantic moment that was unfolding. But suddenly someone coughed sarcastically in that romantic moment, snapping the two older people out of their trance. When they saw where the noise came from, they saw the last person they expected to find. The cheeks of both boys flushed, and they quickly pulled away from their grasp, immediately ending the romantic moment between them. Serjorg could only chuckle at the sight of his mother-master. This only enraged them both, and with a swift movement, he smacked the young man who had interrupted their performance. They both decided it was best to forget what had happened earlier, going directly to their respective rooms since they had already eaten during their conversation with Serafall, leaving a Serjorg on the ground because he seriously drove both protagonists crazy. End of chapter. Chapter 6, the newest member of the Sun family and a tense encounter. Several days have passed since the young Serafall appeared at our protagonist's house. During that time, both Serjorg and Miss Law dedicated themselves to their respective training regimens under the guidance of the young Sun. Miss Law and Goku grew closer than ever before, feeling the same way about each other, but a barrier prevented them from pursuing their budding relationship. Miss Law, for her part, was afraid of rejection. She hadn't had much experience with love. At a young age, exactly 18, she had to marry the heir of the Bale family who wasn't a pervert, but since the birth of her beloved son, she had undergone a radical change that now consumed her. She no longer had the motivation that characterized her in her youth. Now she was afraid of not being enough for Goku. As for the latter, he felt something for Miss Law. His heart yearned to embrace her, kiss her, and love her for the rest of his life. But since Serafall came to their home and began frequenting the Sun house more often, his feelings for the girl with pigtails also intensified. This confused him. Even with his extensive life experience, Goku had witnessed the birth and death of many. He still didn't understand love. He felt conflicted. He loved them both, but he didn't want to hurt either of them. He loved them both in his own way. With Miss Law, it was more of a mature, adult love. They had a garden and orchard that they tended together, and those flowers and vegetables perfectly symbolized their relationship, a couple who would work together to create a stable home. In contrast with Serafall, it was more of a youthful love. From the moment they started socializing, their relationship was more about games and somewhat childish jokes. They were two types of relationships that were both similar and different. One day, Miss Law, Serafall, and Goku were all at the Sun house spending time together. They were preparing dinner. Serafall was able to sample Sun's exquisite dishes, marveling at one of the many things her beloved Goku-chan did. After finishing the meal, Goku decided to go check on Serjorg, who was at his morning training session, leaving Miss Law and Serafall alone. Although they had been friends for a long time, they didn't speak unless Goku was around, leaving them both feeling a bit awkward and unsure how to act without him. Miss Law decided to break the ice, being direct and straightforward. Serafall, I know we haven't spoken lately, so I'll be direct because I want to clear up a very obvious doubt I have. Do you like Goku-kun? Those words left Serafall quite shaken by her childhood friend's sudden question. Her face flushed furiously, resembling those intense red tomatoes freshly picked from a vast field. She fidgeted nervously with her fingers, which to any mortal eye would appear so endearing. Why are you asking me that, Miss Lachin? It's very sudden. Miss Law, seeing her best friend's attitude, would speak peacefully. I'm telling you this because you know I feel the same way about Goku as you do. He's the perfect man to me, unlike any of the demon men I know. He's never seen me as just a piece of meat. He simply looks me in the eyes, and even though his gaze doesn't show much emotion, I sense sadness, and I want to take away all that sadness. That's why I want him to be the happiest man in the world. That's why I wanted to talk to you seriously about this. Those words surprised Serafall. Those words, though few, reflected the great love Miss Law felt for Goku. Gathering her courage, she also revealed her emotions. I know I don't know him very well, and you're right. Even though he reflects sadness, he offers a warmth and protection that no other man has ever given me. He's a being who, though handsome and strong, shows no trace of arrogance. At first, I approached him to learn his intentions and the source of his power, but the closer I got to him, the more I fell in love with that palm-like hair. He's the kind of man a woman would want, and I too long to soothe the sadness he keeps hidden deep within. Those words would take a weight off Miss Law's shoulders. She needed to confirm her suspicions and knew that Serafall wasn't the type of girl who fell in love with a man quickly. Approaching the young Shedevil, she peacefully took her hands, looking into each other's eyes as if they were sisters sharing their emotional problems. You know, Serafall-chan, I love Goku and I want to take away the sadness that torments him. For that, I'll need someone else's help, and that someone is you, Serafall. That's why I'm asking begging you to join me and help our future love. I wouldn't mind sharing Goku if it's for the sake of helping him and making us a happy family. What do you say, Serafall? Do you accept your friend's request? This would leave a Serafall very stunned by the proposal her friend had just given her, giving her a tender hug and also expressing her opinion. I will, Miss Lachin. Together we'll help Goku-chan, though we should also get closer and talk to Goku about this in the future. Miss Law would simply nod and return her friend's hug, remaining like that for a few moments, separating due to the sound of a doorknob. When they looked in the direction the sound came from, they saw Goku and Serjorg arrive, surprised to see the two of them hugging. The spiky-haired one then spoke. What's going on here, girls? Were you fighting or something? The two would separate and together they would reach Goku, then both would kiss him on the cheeks, and holding his hands the devils would speak in sync. It's okay, Goku-kun, let's go eat, the food's getting cold. Goku and Serjorg, puzzled by the actions of the two friends, decide to play along, going to eat together as a family, a strange family. After everyone had finished eating their respective meals, the first to speak was Serafall, who had been seriously thinking about what she was going to say next throughout the meal. Goku-chan, I've decided something very important, and I need to know your answer. This would leave everyone intrigued by Serafall's decision, especially the young man who was named. Goku-chan, I'm coming to live with you and I'd like to know if you'd accept me into your home. I want to spend more time with you too. I want us all to be united like a family. Leaving everyone surprised by Serafall's request, looking in only one direction, the focus of attention being Goku, who upon hearing those words would feel happy to have one of the two women he was interested in closer. He knew there was something more behind all this. He wasn't a fool not to know that there is more than just living in this house. Serafall-chan, my house is your house, so if you want to come live with us as one of the family, I won't refuse your request. This made both Miss Law and Serafall smile at what was said about their love interest. But I'll have to go to your parents' house to see if they'll let you live there. This would leave a Serafall blushing because she forgot that she still lived with her parents. She was already an adult woman but never left the skirts of her family, so if a man were to go and make that request, it would imply that that man would ask for her hand in marriage. Goku-chan. You're right, but if you come to my house to ask permission to live with you, you'll be implying that you're going to ask for my hand in marriage. This left Goku stunned by what Serafall said, leaving everyone else in the room equally stunned. In Goku's mind. Oh dear, I didn't think of that. But if I don't, Serafall will be sad and hate me for not keeping my promises, and I'll never break a promise again. Out of their thoughts. It doesn't matter, Serafall-chan, I'll go anyway. I promised you I'd let you live in my house, and that's what I'll do no matter what it takes. A promise is a promise, Serafall-chan. This left both Miss Law and Serjorg surprised, and Serafall blushing and happy because this would be a big step for her future relationship with Goku. Well, no, Goku-kun. I'll go home to tell my parents about this, so I'll expect you tomorrow at 8:00 p.m. to talk to them, saying goodbye to everyone and creating a magic circle to teleport back home. When Serafall left the Sun household, Serjorg went to his bedroom to rest, exhausted from his master's training. He was so tired that he didn't even bother to pay much attention to the elders' conversation, forgetting to bother his master and mother, leaving Miss La and Goku in the kitchen washing the dishes, who would be silent, although it wasn't the awkward moment. I needed someone to talk about what had happened before. Miss La was lost in thought after hearing what Goku had said. Serafall had taken a big step in their future relationship, and she decided to take the next step as well. After finishing cleaning the kitchen, she spoke up in the silence that had fallen over the moment. Goku-kun, I need to know something very important, so let's go to the living room to talk. Intrigued, Goku decided to follow Miss La to the living room of the house. Once they were both seated together, Miss La would speak. Goku, I need you to answer something for me, and I don't want you to lie to me. I want your answer to be as honest as possible. Hugging Goku and putting his head on the chest of the raven-haired boy who just looked at him and said nothing. A few seconds passed, which to Miss La felt like an eternity. She was nervous and didn't know how to ask Goku what she needed to know. But out of nowhere she felt a hug from Goku, and seeing that Miss La was trembling, she decided to give her some support so that she wouldn't be afraid. Having achieved her goal, Miss La mustered her courage and decided to raise her gaze, meeting the Saiyan's eyes, and without further ado she mustered her courage and asked bluntly, Goku-kun, I need to know what you think of Serafall and me. I need to know, and I don't want you to lie to me. I need you to tell me from your heart. When Goku heard what Miss La asked him, he knew he shouldn't lie but rather tell her all the feelings he had towards her. Well, as for Serafall, she's a very nice girl. I love her attitude. She's sometimes carefree and I really like being with her. It's like being with my past self, and I actually have feelings for her. I don't know how to describe it, but I think that's what is known as love. Leaving Miss La sad because the man she loved might not reciprocate her feelings, she began to remember her past, how she was abandoned along with her son, hugging Goku tighter, wanting to cry because she thought the same thing was going to happen to her. But before she could start crying, Goku spoke again. But what I just confessed to you is almost the same as what I feel for you. You've become a very important part of my life. From the moment I met you, I knew I had to help you. I felt you would be very important to me, and when we started planting flowers and vegetables together, even when we cooked together, I felt like I was married to you. I love spending time with you, and if you weren't with me, I wouldn't know what to do with my life. You helped me forget some of the torments of my past. For the past few days, I've wanted to confess my feelings to you, but I couldn't because I also feel the same way about Serafall, and I didn't want either of us to suffer because of me. As soon as she finished speaking those words, Miss La couldn't hold back any longer, and in an instant she would rush towards the raven-haired man, wrapping her warm arms around Goku's neck, their lips colliding and giving a passionate kiss that revealed all the feelings that lay in the heart of the devil, Goku returning the kiss in the same way. After several seconds, they decided to separate for lack of air. Now separated from their first kiss, they both looked into each other's eyes with a smile on their faces, and after looking at each other for a few seconds, the young devil spoke first. You know, Goku-kun, I'm no expert on love, but ever since I met you, I've had the same feeling you have for me. I love you so much. Like I told you once, you're everything to me. I'll be there for you through thick and thin, just like you were for me. So I won't leave you, and I'll do everything I can to make you the happiest man in the world. And don't worry about Serafall. When you went to see Serjorg, I spoke with her, and we made an agreement that we'll both do our best to make you happy, and we'll be a very close family, darling. Those words were heard with a great feeling of love. Goku didn't know what else to say, and without further ado, he would wrap his arms around her perfect waist, so perfect that with the simple touch the devil's good figure was shown, kissing Miss La again, and after finishing his passionate kiss he would speak. I promise you, darling, that I'll make you both as happy as possible, and I won't let anything happen to you. We'll be a very close and supportive family. So let me ask you, will you be my girlfriend? The young woman would begin to shed a few tears of happiness and without hesitation would quickly accept. Yes, I accept, Goku-kun. Without another word, they kissed again, but with each passing second, their kiss grew more intense, evolving from romantic to somewhat lustful. Nothing mattered to them anymore but their deepest desires, buried deep within, waiting to awaken and be pursued by their chosen partner. Suddenly, Goku would lift Miss La up and hold her by her rear end, that rear end which, at the slightest touch, he could feel was so round and perfect, bringing out the Saiyan's primal side like a caveman stalking his large, fleshy prey. Seeing this, Miss La would wrap her legs tightly around his waist, feeling the toned body of the young Saiyan, even though he no longer did the same intense exercises that had given him that body. He still had a perfect one. She began to kiss him more wildly, bringing out the most primal side of the demon race, making it known that that race is not called that only because of its wings. Going to the dark-haired man's room, they immediately rushed onto the bed, tearing off each other's clothes, remaining as naked as the Supreme Kai brought them into the world. That night, moans of passion filled the air. Kisses were exchanged, covering most of their bodies as they consummated the act. All of this was witnessed by a full moon, whose light filtering through the bedroom window illuminated their naked bodies as they moved passionately and lustfully, changing positions frequently, continuing for most of the night without rest. The next day, A young man woke up as usual at his training time, preparing for his next killing spree. But upon leaving, he saw that his master wasn't waiting for him outside as was customary for the young demon. He decided to go and see where his master, Goku, was. Passing through the gardens, kitchen, living room, and dining room, resigned to the fact that he couldn't find him anywhere in the house, and remembering that his mother was nowhere to be seen either, he went to look in the bedrooms. Upon arriving first at his mother's bedroom, he saw that the room was deserted and tidy with no trace of her. He decided to go to his teacher's bedroom. Upon arriving, he was surprised to see his mother-teacher tightly embraced, with no intention of letting go, obviously covered by a bedspread. Seeing this, young Serafall knew something had happened between them, immediately closing the door, a little uncomfortable with what had just transpired, but smiling because at last his mother would have the happiness she so longed for. It was about time. I thought they would never confess their feelings. I certainly think it was all because of my interference by constantly bothering them about their love for each other. Leaving that place and deciding to go train on his own. Spending several hours doing his routine training. 8 a.m. A young she-devil began to open her eyes to the morning light that illuminated the place where she lay, yawning because she was still sleepy. Heavens! I think I had a very strange dream. I dreamt that I confessed to Goku-kun and then I had a passionate night with him. Opening her beautiful brown eyes, a color that keeps you awake, a coffee that causes sleeplessness. But when she opened them, she was greatly surprised. The she-devil wasn't in her room. On the contrary, the first thing she saw was a defined face with silver hair. She immediately remembered everything from the previous day, realizing that that fleshy dream wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It had all happened on that full moon night. Gazing directly into the thin yet perfect lips of the raven-haired man, those lips that had roamed over her body that night of passion, she slowly moved closer, eager to taste them again, those lips that left her so ecstatic with pleasure. But she pulled away immediately when she felt the young man who held her captive in his large, muscular arms begin to stir, ready to awaken in a few moments. Seeing that the young man slowly opened his eyes, when they opened them their gazes met and without taking off they smiled warmly. "Good morning, darling," said young son, now fully conscious. "Good morning, darling," Miss La replied without hesitation, immediately stealing a warm kiss that was reciprocated. They hugged each other tighter, prolonging the kiss. A few seconds passed, but to both of them it felt like minutes or even hours. As they separated, they looked at each other and smiled again. Suddenly, the young man removed his strong arms from the she-devil, got out of bed, and without any shame began to change in front of a slightly flushed and surprised woman, wondering how that thing had managed to enter her. It wasn't gigantic, but it was longer and wider than average, perfect for satisfying and corrupting a woman. The virtues of being from a warrior race with a high degree of manhood. "I see it's getting a bit late, so I'll go see if Serafall is training or not," Son said as he finished putting on his usual wristbands. "I'll go make breakfast," the young woman concluded, ending the brief conversation. They both went to their respective activities, starting their daily routine with SAIRAORG. The young man was throwing consecutive punches in the air as if he were an experienced fighter, because it was obvious he trained with one of the fighters who was even recognized by many gods. As he finished one of his routines, he would see his teacher approach with a smile that would surprise the young man. He only showed that smile a few times, and this was one of those times. Upon arrival and standing face to face, the one who would speak would be Serafall. "I see you've finally woken up, master," he said with a mocking smile that Goku understood. "Hehes. Sorry for not waking up early, Serafall, but let's get back to training." A fight began between the two, with Goku surprised by the increase in power that Serafall had reached. With that power he was already on par with a demon of a high mid-range, but even so it was insignificant compared to the power the master possessed. After spending a few hours there, Serafall can be seen very tired and dirty from the confrontation that for him was a massacre towards himself. "Heavens, master, he's too strong. Even with my increased power, I can't keep up with him, but one day I'll surpass him and become the strongest in the world." These words brought a proud smile to Goku's face. The boy was very optimistic and had the same dream that the Saiyan once had. "I hope so, kid. I'll be waiting for you for our worthy battle." As they finished saying that, they would hear someone calling them, and they would see that it was a Miss La, also with a warm smile that reflected a lot of happiness. Upon arriving home, they would take showers, and after finishing their respective ablutions, they would go to eat, spending a quiet day together. At the end, Goku would be seen in a truck identical to the one Bulma had given him, only this one had tires. The Saiyan was off to make deliveries of his products, which were in high demand by shops and restaurants in the nearby towns where he lived. Saying goodbye to his wife and disciple. Time leap. You can see Miss La and Goku finishing moving some things that were transferred to Son's room since minutes before Miss La asked him that since they were now boyfriend and girlfriend and had consummated the act, they would have to sleep together, Goku accepting because the girl was right. "Goku, don't forget that you have to go talk to Serafall's parents so she can come live in this house." Goku would simply nod his head and begin to get dressed to go to Serafall. He dressed elegantly because he knew that if he went there, he had to make a good impression on the parents of the pigtail-wearing devil. With Miss Law helping him with his tie, the two already looked like husband and wife, but it wasn't yet the moment that marked the beginning of a life that would only be separated by death or a mutual separation. Once they were ready, Goku said goodbye with a kiss to Miss Law and headed to the agreed-upon location, teleporting to the underworld and arriving at the gates of the Leviathan mansion, encountering the guards of that Leviathan clan. "Excuse me, good evening. I've come for Miss Serafall, my name is Son Goku." The demon, upon seeing who it was, gave way, for he had seen him with Serafall the other time, and besides, he had already been informed of the arrival of the Ebony One. Upon arriving at the door, he would simply knock, and in a moment one of the mansion's many maids would open the door for him. "Please come in, Mr. Son Goku. Miss Serafall's parents are waiting for you in the main hall." He began to follow the maid, who was looking at him out of the corner of her eye, blushing slightly because the boy was not at all ugly, and the suit he was wearing increased his attractiveness. After a few minutes they arrived at the main room, seeing Serafall with two greater demons, but he didn't care about the two of them. He only looked at Serafall with a confused face, a drop of sweat forming when he saw how the girl with pigtails was dressed. She had the magical girl outfit, while he even had to ask Miss Law for advice on how to dress when he was around high-ranking demons. "Serafall, why are you dressed like that?" Goku asked, somewhat intrigued by the demon's behavior, but Goku couldn't say more because the demon immediately went to hug him tightly. "I see you did keep your promise, Goku-kun." She placed her breasts in the Saiyan's face, who, although in his ultra-instinct state, was visibly flushed and uncomfortable with his future wife's actions. Cough, cough. Upon hearing that, they would both realize that it was the demon's mother who did it. They separated immediately because it was something that did not bode well for those present. "It's a pleasure. My name is Son Goku. And I've come at Serafall's request to take you to my home." He bowed to make a good impression. When Goku finished explaining the reason for his welcome, he received no response from the senior demons, feeling somewhat uncomfortable and deciding to recover from his bow. Seeing that both demons were doing nothing but observing him seriously, Goku also became serious, turning the place into a complete battle zone on the verge of war. "Serafall, could you go to your room for a while? I need to have a serious talk with our guest." It was the patriarch of the Leviathan family speaking. Serafall could only nod her head because, although she felt that something bad was going to happen, she couldn't reproach them, leaving immediately from the place, being seen only by Goku, who, when he turned his gaze to where Serafall's parents were, would see both her mother and father close to him, but suddenly they both took his hands and happily hugged him, leaving Goku with nothing to say. "Thank you so much. I thought I'd never have children. That Serafall is so childish, and none of the other clans wanted a crazy girl like her as a daughter-in-law." Serafall's father spoke, shedding a few anime-style tears because his daughter would finally have a life with a boy. This would still leave Goku sweating because he had expected everything but this. Did they already want Serafall to leave? Goku thought to himself, somewhat shocked by this revelation. "Heh, it's nothing, don't worry, Serafall is in good hands," making both demons happy, bringing out some comical tears. "Well, it doesn't matter if we introduce ourselves. Serafall told us about you and how you saved her from death a few times, so you'd better take my daughter and I hope you give me grandchildren," the mother of the young woman with pigtails said. She was sweating more than usual because of that uncomfortable incident. "Please go to Serafall and tell her that we accept her request." Without further ado, Goku sighed and obeyed Serafall's father, following a maid who noticed that she too had an anime-style sweat droplet. Upon arriving, he would see that the young she-devil was sitting with her back to him, a little impatient for the answer she would get from her parents. Upon seeing this, Goku would approach the demon and touch her shoulder, drawing Serafall's attention, who would look at Goku somewhat impatiently to know what he would say. "Let's go home, Serafall-chan." He smiled warmly at her. These words, though ordinary for some, were quite the opposite for Serafall, and unexpectedly Goku was thrown by the demon, both of them falling onto the bed. "I thought my parents wouldn't accept Goku-chan." The she-devil began to hug him tightly, and after a few seconds they separated, realizing they were in a somewhat compromising position. The young she-devil was on top of Sun, and for a moment they stared at each other, making Serafall blush because she knew what would happen next. They both approached slowly, and at any moment their lips would touch, kissing each other strangely because for the young Serafall it was her first time doing this kind of thing. Cough, cough. A somewhat sarcastic cough was heard, and upon hearing it, they separated to see that it was their father who was standing next to their mother, watching the scene with a mocking laugh. Goku couldn't sense their presence because he was more focused on the rather strange kiss he received from Serafall. Seeing this, they both broke away from their provocative position and decided to continue with the young devil's move. 30 minutes later. The two young men were finishing up the move, starting to put their things into a Leviathan family teleportation circle. Once they had finished all this, they would go to where their parents were, who were waiting for them in the mansion's living room with a smile that showed great happiness. Well, Serafall, I hope you settle into your new home, and I just want to tell you that when you come, you'll already have my beloved grandchildren in your womb. The family matriarch spoke, leaving Serafall blushing deeply and unable to express the thoughts swirling in her demonic head. Goku-kun, let's go home now, please. She said this with great embarrassment, hiding her face from the Saiyan's eyes, burying her face in Goku's toned chest. Goku, uncomfortable, had beads of sweat on his skin because now he knew where the demonic personality in his chest came from. They both said goodbye to everyone present in the room and teleported away using Goku's technique to get out of that place quickly. Upon arriving at the house, the first thing they would see is a mass waiting for them in the living room. Hello, Miss Lachin. Finally, I can be with you all, and also, finally, I can spend more time with Goku-chan, hugging his arm with her large, round breasts. Hehe, Serafall-chan, let's go choose your room so we can start putting things there. Upon hearing this, Serafall would hug Goku's arm tighter and look at him in a tender way, as tender as a small puppy. Goku-chan, now that I can be with you, I won't let you go, so I'll move into your room so I don't feel alone anymore. This would make Goku nervous because he already had Miss La in his room and he didn't know how she would take it, directing his gaze at Miss La so that he could receive an answer. But when he saw her, he would see that she nodded her head with a smile, letting him know that she had no problem with this given event. Okay, Serafall-chan, let's go and have you leave your things in my room. Just so you know, Miss La's there too, so the three of us will have to fit in my... Upon hearing Goku's words, Serafall looked at Miss La with a mischievous smile, revealing that the demon knew something had happened between them. This caused Miss La to blush and look away, confirming Serafall's suspicions. Without further ado, they decided to go to Goku's room, the three of them helping each other to put their things away and make sure everything was in order. After finishing everything, they would go to sleep, putting on their respective outfits. Serafall, seeing that Goku only had boxer shorts that showed off his well-endowed body, which was like the statue of the best sculptor, no, even better than a well-worked statue, and also seeing Miss La with a semi-transparent white shirt. Serafall-chan, it's best if you wear thin clothing or no clothing at all because you'll get very hot if you sleep with Goku. He gives off a very warm heat. Upon hearing that, Serafall would take off her pajamas and put on a thin shirt as well since it was still too soon for her to be too exposed to Goku. It wasn't the right time yet. This was also the case for Miss La. She didn't feel it was the right time for that either. Demons usually like to sleep naked and they were no exception. With everyone already lying down, both demons could be seen on either side of Goku, each hugging him on one side, Serafall watching in surprise as Goku gave off a very warm heat. Without further ado, they would say goodbye to the raven-haired man, Miss La being the first to give him a kiss on the mouth and saying goodbye with a warm smile. See you tomorrow, darling. These were Miss La's words, which were reciprocated. Serafall would only pout because she saw them kissing her Goku-chan, deciding to give Goku a quick kiss on the lips and saying goodbye quickly, hiding her beautiful face on the arms of the raven-haired boy, who would look at her surprised by that event caused by the demon, giving them both a tender kiss on the foreheads as they were already asleep and smiling because of that kiss. In Goku's thoughts, wow, I never thought I'd be in this situation. If Master Roshi and Yamcha saw me like this, they'd be cursing me for my bad luck. He started laughing because those memories that lay dormant in his mind were being recalled. Deciding to sleep, they hugged their companions tighter, who unconsciously did the same, departing for the world of dreams. The next morning, the first to wake up, as always, would be Goku, who, once conscious, would see how both demons were on top of him, very close to his face. Upon seeing this, he could only smile and kiss both of his companions on the forehead. Slowly and quietly separating from the girls so as not to wake them, he waited a few minutes outside, watching Serjorg arrive with his usual smile. Once they were both facing each other, they would begin their morning warm-up, but this time the training was going to be different from usual. Serjorg, this time I'll teach you more about Kai. Since you already have perfect control of Kai, I'll give you some techniques so you can further enhance your abilities. You see, there's a technique called the Kaioken. This technique, believe it or not, is one of my best. A master named Kaya-sama taught it to me. The reason it's my best technique is because it can help you multiply your power based on your abilities. For example, I can use it up to 20 times at full power, so if you can multiply it 20-fold, you'll be the most powerful being in the world. But don't get too excited just yet. Although it's effective, it's very difficult to control. One mistake and this technique could leave you on the brink of death. So I want to know if you still want to learn it. Serjorg, upon hearing all this, would be very surprised by such a technique, and without hesitation would say, I accept, Master. I don't care what happens as long as I become the strongest and surpass you. Goku would smile because that was the answer he was expecting. Several hours would pass while Goku was teaching him that technique, when suddenly he would hear the call of two voices, and upon seeing where the sound was coming from, he would see two demons with a smile on their face calling him to come and eat their food. Once in the dining hall, Serafall began his rampage, having recently started eating quite a lot. This made Goku think to himself that he had the appetite of a Saiyan when the next person to speak was Serafall, Goku-chan. Today we're going to the demon's base so you can meet my friends and they can find out who you are. I told them I'd bring a very powerful individual to help us in this war. Goku would simply nod his head, then his gaze would fix on his wife, who upon seeing him would sigh and speak with regret. I won't go, darling. I'll only help with community aid. Besides, he must be at the base where Serafall is and I don't want to see him. Upon hearing that, Goku's expression changed to a serious one because he knew who Miss Law was talking about. Okay, honey, don't worry, relax, that guy will never lay a finger on you again. Miss Law would smile upon hearing that because she knew Goku wouldn't leave her for anything in the world. Alright, Goku-kun, let's get changed so we can go. He went to get dressed for the occasion. This time Goku wore a Saiyan battle suit. He wanted to wear it in memory of his lifelong friend and rival. As he was about to leave, Goku said goodbye to Miss Law with a kiss on the lips, then placed his hand on her head and created the protective barrier he uses to keep her safe. Saying goodbye to the young Serafall, he placed his hand on the aforementioned shoulder. You know, Serafall, take care of your mother and help her in any way you can. Serafall nodded with a determined smile. Upon entering through the magic circle, they would teleport to the outskirts of the base, beginning to walk towards the main door. Upon passing through the door, they would be seen by everyone present, who, upon seeing Commander Serafall's companion, would begin to murmur about the origin of the raven-haired man. They both decided to ignore the murmurs of their companions. Once in the meeting room, they saw a young man with crimson hair arrive, followed by a very voluptuous silver-haired maid who, to anyone's eye, possessed the qualities of a perfect demon. A young man with green hair was also present, standing next to the red-haired one. Since they were already close, the first to speak would be the redhead. Hello, Serafall-chan, I see you're with a lot of people. May I ask your friend's name? Hello, Serafall-chan. The one next to me is Son Goku. He's the ally I told you about. He's very powerful and he also wants this war to end. Serafall would become a little serious upon learning that the man who saved Serafall and who came from space a few months ago was standing in front of him. It's a pleasure, my name is Son Goku, and I came to help you at Serafall's request. It's a pleasure, my name is Serafall Gremory and I am the leader of this base, and those accompanying me are Grafia, my assistant, and Ajuka Belsabu, my fellow base commander. Well, as you may have already noticed, Serafall, he is the one who a few months ago displayed a great power that was even capable of making the world tremble. This would leave the other companions astonished by such words from the pigtailed devil. Are you really the one who had unimaginable power? Ajuka Belsabu asked, somewhat frightened, and Goku simply nodded in agreement. Serafall was going to ask him some questions that he had been wanting to ask since Goku's arrival in this world. But before continuing with this spectacle, a dark-haired man with an arrogant smile would be seen approaching where our protagonists were, who upon seeing Goku would realize that this man was the same as the description given to him by his soldiers. Goku, upon seeing him, would become very furious, glaring at the newcomer. They both looked serious because, although they didn't know each other personally, they knew who they were. This made the atmosphere in that place very tense. Are you Lord Bale? Goku spoke in a voice from beyond the grave, which surprised Serafall because of such a change in attitude from her beloved Goku-chan. End of chapter. Chapter 7, New Friends. The tension in the place was heavy, too heavy. Two men were causing this tension, but the one who stood out the most was a white-haired man whose mere gaze sent shivers down your spine. Are you Lord Bale? Those words were spoken in a sepulchral tone, surprising everyone present, especially a girl with pigtails, who was the most surprised since in all the time she had known him, he had never behaved that way. She knew the reason for that tone. She knew the boy her white-haired friend was talking to because that boy had hurt her best friend not only physically but also mentally for not producing a good heir, simply a powerful jerk. Yes, my name is Lord Bale, Patriarch of the Lion Clan. The boy, still somewhat frightened by those imposing words, decided not to reveal his fear and asked in the same tone. As you know, I am from the Lion Clan and I know that you killed my squad. Not only that, but you also left the one who commanded that squad traumatized. So why did you interfere in the mission that was imposed by me? This caused the son to finally explode with rage. He thought that those who were going to kill his disciple were acting on their own, not under direct orders. In an instant, the son created a barrier, enclosing himself and Lord Bale, only visible to his companions who were still reeling from Bale's words. Without further ado, Goku, in a burst of energy, increased his aura, beginning to create a very suffocating pressure for Bale. He immediately knelt down with no possibility of getting up. What did you do to me, you bastard? The Patriarch of the Lion Clan managed to mutter those words with regret. Avoiding the son question, he would speak in the same tone he had previously shown. From now on, my disciple Son Serafall and my wife Son Misla are under my protection. You will have no jurisdiction over them, and if you dare attempt to harm them, I will destroy your clan. Not only that, but I will also psychologically torture you for the rest of your miserable existence. This would not only surprise Bale but also his companions who saw and heard everything that had happened. They knew that Lord Bale had done things unacceptable even to demons. He only remained on this side because he wanted to grape every female demon he encountered, including Serafall and Graphia. Most of them thought the same. Who are you, Son Goku? Except for one, who was the demon Serafall. The girl was in her world thinking about when she would use the surname of her beloved Goku-chan. Without further ado, the white-haired son would lower his barrier and with it the pressure. Turning towards his companions, his expression completely changed to his usual relaxed one. Okay. I think everyone has a lot of questions, so let's go to the meeting room. Walking without a care in the world, making everyone there look confused, each one sighing, and without further ado they continued to the rhythm, leaving Bale on the ground powerless because of what had just happened. I swear to you, son, this won't end like this. I'll get my revenge on you and everyone who just humiliated me. Taking another path aimlessly. Already in the meeting room, everyone present was silent, looking directly at our protagonist, waiting for someone to speak up and end the tension. Well, what is it you want to know? The one who would break the tension would be Goku, who, somewhat uncomfortable with the looks, decided to break the silence. Well, son Goku, as you know, my name is Serafall Gremory, heir to the Gremory clan, one of the 72 demonic pillars. What I want to know is, what are your intentions and why did you decide to help us in this war? Well, Serafall Gremory, I don't intend to harm this world. I only wanted to live a normal life on this planet, but since meeting Serafall and learning of her troubles, I decided to help her because I'm not a fan of war. As he finished speaking, two people stood stunned by this revelation, Ajuka and Graphia. They had just met him and knew nothing about him. Even Graphia, who was usually expressionless, was forced to show a gesture of surprise. Wait, are you not from this planet? I thought you were from some race that lived hidden from the other supernatural races. That's right, Ajuka-chan, he doesn't belong to this world. The moment he shook the world with his power, he descended from the sky. Serafall excitedly answered her other best friend's questions. And what race do you belong to, son Goku? Eager to learn more, he replied, Beelzebub. He was a fanatic for the unknown. He had books that, thanks to buying the great Amadea-sama a few drinks, he had learned about the universe. There he discovered that souls came from different planets and that there were gods more powerful than the god of Earth himself. My race belongs to the Saiyan race. They were a warrior race with great potential. Unfortunately, they were ruled by a conqueror of worlds, who upon learning that the Saiyans were dangerous in the future decided to kill them all except for me. I was sent to another world to avenge my race. It should be noted that this left those present surprised except for Serafall, who was hugging the son's right arm and with her head on his shoulder. Wait, you say there was a conqueror of worlds, does that mean he could come and conquer this world? Serafall, a little afraid, managed to ask that. Don't worry, Serafall Gremory, I managed to defeat him, so for the moment there is no more conqueror. Although, to tell the truth, you have great potential, Serafall. You could draw out 60% of the conqueror's power when we first fought, and if you train properly you could beat him using your 70%. This revelation pleased Serafall. He still had potential. He always trained his destructive magic like a madman, but lately his abilities weren't increasing. He wanted to be the Demon King, and for that he needed to be the strongest among all demons. Without further ado, Serafall decided to get up and head towards Goku, who already knew what the Gremory would ask him for. Please, son Goku, if you know I still have great potential, you must know how to further enhance my abilities. She knelt before the astonished gaze of everyone present. Don't kneel, Serafall. At the moment I wouldn't know what to say to you. I'll just tell you to let me think about it a little. Happily, the heir of the Gremory clan rose from his supplication and with a smile headed back to his seat. He hoped it would help him with this. Well, what else do you want to know about me? I am Graphia Lucifuge. I want to know if you are allied with any other faction, especially the biblical one. If you are allied with any other faction, you would cause us problems since we just had a holy war, and if you are one of their allies, they would consider us heretical demons. Well, I'm not allied with any faction. Although there were some leaders who wanted me on their side, I think their names were Azazel, Michael, and Yasaka. Goku recalled that once during his time in this world, Azazel came to his house with a line of about 20 seminate fallen angels, offering them as he pleased in exchange for joining his faction. They were beautiful, but unfortunately for Azazel, Goku wasn't a man enslaved by his impulses and respectfully rejected the offer. From that day on, he never saw Azazel or Michael again. Michael had witnessed Azazel's foolishness, which ruined his plans. He had planned to marry Goku to his sister Gabriel, the most beautiful angel in the pantheon. They could see into the hearts of all living beings, and Michael saw that Goku had a pure heart but with traces of anguish and regret. That's why he believed Goku would be a good match for Gabriel, who would help him with his emotional problems. But sadly, everything went wrong for the Archangel Michael, because thanks to Azazel's foolishness, he lost any chance of an alliance with Goku. Azazel was banished from God's grace because of his perversion, which was repugnant to the angels and archangels, thus causing Michael to lose his once best friend. As that memory faded, another one automatically came to mind. Yasaka, the leader of the Yakai pantheon. The Yakai leader learned of Goku's existence after witnessing Azazel in her territory. Deciding to investigate, and after some subtle hints directed at the leader of the fallen angels, Yasaka discovered that the being who had shaken the world was indeed in her territory. Upon finally meeting him, she challenged him to a fight to see if what she had heard was true. The fight ended in a humiliating defeat for the Yakai leader. Knowing that this male was perfect for producing strong offspring, the Kitsune decided he would be her alpha, provocatively asking him to be her mate. But unfortunately for the leader, Goku at that time had no desire to interfere with the supernatural and politely rejected her. Perhaps if the Yakai leader had been more subtle, she could have now squeezed and ecstatically enjoyed every nutrient from the ebony-haired man. Out of their thoughts. Everyone saw how the white-haired boy remained thoughtful for a few minutes. Serafall deciding to take away that non-existent space of time for Goku with a light bite on the raven-haired boy's cheek, who, upon feeling the touch on a part of his body, would manage to stop thinking about it. "What's wrong, Serafall?" Somewhat intrigued, he asked the reason for the demon's recent actions. "You became thoughtful when you mentioned the leaders' names. I'm sorry about that, Serafall, but I remembered some events that happened with them. And can we know who Goku-chan is?" Serafall intrigued, wanting to know what had happened to each of the leaders. "Well, I remembered that Azazel once came to my house with about 20 seminaked women, saying I could have them at my disposal if I joined him. Also, Michael wanted me to be his sister Gabriel's fiancé. Although he never said it directly, he always talked about marriage and how beautiful his sister was with perfect culinary skills. Also, the Yasaka leader once told me that I should be her male, her alpha, and that she wanted to squeeze every nutrient out of me. Although I didn't quite understand what she meant by squeeze, I know the Kitsune leader wanted to have offspring." At the end of the words, he would receive a tap on the head from Serafall, who would reproach him somewhat angrily. "You're unfaithful, Goku. I thought you weren't a womanizer. Now you tell me you had 20 women at your disposal. And as if that weren't enough, you say Yasaka was coming on to you about draining all your semen." The demon could not finish her words because Goku covered her mouth, having already understood what she meant by squeezing out all her nutrients. "I understand, Serafall, but you don't have to be angry. I rejected all the leaders' proposals because I didn't want to interfere with the supernatural before." With regret, he managed to calm the demon, who upon learning this calmed down and continued to hug her unfaithful-chan. "Okay, Goku-chan, I believe you. But if I find out again that women are offering you anything, I will create the apocalypse." With those words, the demon calmed down and lay down on the chest of the raven-haired man, who could only sigh at what had just happened, turning his gaze towards the leaders of the base, seeing how they all looked at them with poker faces. Now they knew the reason for the even more energetic attitude that the Leviathan has had in these last weeks. "Heh, excuse me for what you just saw, it's just that Serafall is very protective of everyone in the household." Embarrassed, he could only manage that. Lately, his ultra instinct hasn't been able to control his emotions. Perhaps something could happen because of that. "It's nothing, Goku, she's always like this, so we're used to it." Zersech spoke, recalling how Serafall had always been like this since they were children. "Okay, does anyone have any more questions?" "Yes, this is the latest Son Goku armor. Where did he get it?" "It's striking and looks comfortable," Zersech asked, somewhat intrigued by Son's attire and wanting to know more about the armor. "Well, Zersech, this armor is a representation of Saiyan armor. I wear it in honor of a rival I had, and I thought it appropriate to use it on this occasion since it is very resistant and can also stretch to fit your body. Wow, that armor is quite striking. Could you give me one? I feel like it would suit me well." "Heh, if you want, I can do it for you right now," Zersech's Gremory. With that, Goku approached the Gremory heir and with a swift movement placed his right hand on the redhead's head. Zersech, somewhat intrigued, was about to ask about this action, but then saw his clothing change to one identical to Goku's with only a few differences. He had 2 spikes on each shoulder, a red hood over his armor, and some other rather striking details. "Well, I made some changes to your armor to make it look more like a leader's. Besides, there are other sets of armor next to you, and there's one of yours too if you'd like one as well." This confused everyone present, because what Goku had just done was not a teleportation circle as was normally done to change outfits, but rather it was pure energy. "Okay, I think that's enough questions for today. I won't answer any more because it's not the time, so I'll take Serafall with me to show me around the base." Holding hands with Serafall, they left the meeting room. "Well, what do you think of Son Goku?" Zersech spoke up, though he was more focused on his new armor. He really loved it. It was perfect for a good leader. "Well, he doesn't seem to have bad intentions, and it seems he'd do anything to save Serafall, Serjorg, and Miss La." Ajuka answered that open question, recalling how he threatened Bale. "You're right, Ajivika-sama. He doesn't seem like a bad guy, and he's interesting and protective. I wish Zersech-sama were like that with me." Those words made Zersech forget all about his new armor, turning redder than his crimson hair and starting to stutter. Well, okay, if you ask for it, darling," making Ajuka laugh because of those 2 lovebirds. On the other hand, Goku stood lost in thought as his demon led him through the demonic base. He'd been experiencing some changes lately. Ever since he started using Ultra Instinct, he'd been a bit unstable and he didn't know why. He decided to put that aside and continue observing the demonic base. It was quite luxurious, with prisons, training grounds, a main hall, and a meeting room. All the demons belonging to the armies of their allied demonic clans were somewhat confused to see a powerful being who wasn't a demon in their base, but upon seeing their leader, Serafall, they decided to dismiss the matter. Perhaps she was an ally, and that's why they chose not to interfere in the leader's affairs. Suddenly, several magic circles would appear around the ears of all the demons present, including Son Goku. Ladies and gentlemen demons, I am leader Zersech Gremory. I need you to come to the main hall at this time to make an important announcement to everyone about some changes that will take place in the base. Upon hearing that, everyone became intrigued by the announcement that would be made in a few moments. They all headed to the main hall to indulge the doubts that now gnawed at them. Now in the main hall, all the clan leaders were waiting for the arrival of their main leaders, who would soon enter. Ajuka, Zersech, who were wearing the armor given to them by the white-haired man, Grafia, Serafall, and Son Goku. The last two had been summoned by Zersech to inform the other demons about the new ally. With everyone now in front of most of those present, the one who would give the command would be the main leader, Zersech Gremory. Attention, leaders of every demon clan. The reason for this summons is very important. As you know, we are currently in a war that we are losing, so we have chosen to seek an ally capable of bringing most of the major races of this world to their knees. For this reason, we have found a suitable ally for our cause, which is to prevent further demonic losses. Let us welcome Son Goku, a pure-blooded Saiyan. Upon hearing that, all the spectators saw the white-haired man who had been with Serafall stand before them. Somewhat confused, they realized that according to Zersech, he was the strongest of all supernatural beings. They sensed a great divine power emanating from him, but he wasn't a god as they didn't perceive the essence of one. He possessed mostly divine energy. Perhaps he was a demigod who had trained rigorously. My name is Son Goku, it's a pleasure to meet you all. From now on, I will be your ally to prevent losses in the final war that will soon be upon us. So if anyone has any doubts, speak up now. Suddenly a hand rose in the middle of everyone present. It was a blonde boy with an arrogant smile and a disgusting demonic essence. I am Razor Phoenix, heir to the Phoenix clan. They say you are a powerful being and that you will save us from this war, but in my opinion and in everyone else's, we feel that your power is not as great as mine. Phoenix spoke arrogantly. He was a repulsive being just like Lord Baal. He was on this side because he wanted to have the largest number of demons in his clan so he could grape them every night for the rest of his life. Well, he's simply the heir to the Phoenix clan. Right now, I'm controlling my power so as not to attract anyone's attention, but if you wish to know my power, I'll increase it a little. Suddenly, a bluish aura with white tones surrounded him. When he revealed his aura, a pressure not suffocating, but enough to make the power of the silver-haired man palpable was created. Everyone present was stunned by the energy emanating from Sun. It was on par with Lucifer's. But they all remembered that the silver-haired man only used a portion of his body, as he himself had stated. Among them was Lord Baal, who, upon feeling that pressure again, began to tremble unconsciously. Damn it, Son Goku, where did you get that power from? The Baal muttered those words again, powerless. In an instant the pressure would vanish, and with it the aura of Sun, who, having finished his act, would retreat towards the demon Serafall. Well, as you may already know, on one of our missions, our friend Falbium Asmodeus was killed in an ambush set by the descendant demons. Zersech Gremory spoke, now standing before everyone. Therefore, along with the other leaders, we've decided to ask Son Goku to fill that position. So Son Goku, would you like to be one of the leaders of this base? Turning his gaze to the sound, he would be somewhat surprised to see how everyone present was looking at him, waiting for his answer. But I can't be a leader of the demons if I'm not one myself. He hesitated to answer that request. Don't worry, Son Goku, as far as we know, Miss Misla and Miss Serafall are currently your fiancés, so you now belong to the demons. This would surprise everyone present, seeing how Serafall was redder than Zersech's own crimson hair. Don't talk nonsense, Zersech, we're not engaged yet. Lowering her voice just as I exclaimed, yet. Sorry, Serafall, but I thought you two were already a couple. Anyway, back to the point, Son Goku, would you like to be one of the leaders of this base? Turning their attention back to the music, he found himself somewhat pensive about the proposal. While it was true that Miss La was now his partner, he didn't know how it would affect his new life. He sighed with regret at the mess he'd gotten himself into. Okay, I'll be the new leader, and from what Serafall told me, I should have a clan, right? Yes, Son Goku, but don't worry for now, we'll give you the territory at the end of this war. Although, do you have a name for your clan in mind? If Zersech, the name will be Seijin in honor of my race. Okay, I think that's all, fellow basemen, you can retire. Obeying all the other demons, they retreated from that place, including the base leaders. But in that empty room stood one demon staring blankly into space. At one point, he clenched his fists in frustration. It was Lord Bale who was furious. Not only had he taken Mislaya Seryorg, but now he was the leader of this base. He had desired to be leader, for if they won, it was very likely that the leaders of this base would become the new Maoists. Damn you, Son Goku. I'll find a way to kill you, and I'll make Serafall mine along with Misla. I'll make them my bitches and grape them for the rest of their lives, leaving the place with too much hatred and resentment. On the other hand, we see in a very remote place in the underworld a base, which unlike the other base, this one was more neglected. In one part of that place, there were some beings sitting on striking thrones, implying that those were leaders of that base, simply a representation of a castle. In front of those beings was a squad of demons kneeling before the leaders of that base. Excuse the inconvenience, descendant leaders. The reason for our visit is to inform you that we found the subject who killed some demons, a descendant leader, several months ago. This caught everyone's attention, and they looked at him eager to know more. The subject's name is Son Goku, and from what we saw, he has now become the new leader of that base, replacing the leader Falbium Asmodeus. So that fellow replaced the inept Asmodeus. It seems we'll need to find allies for the final war. One of those on those thrones spoke with some unease. He'll have to ask for help from other insignificant beings. Calm down, Shalba, we have no other option. It seems we need to infiltrate more people into the base to figure out how to destroy that Son Goku. The one who would calm Shalba down was a brunette with an exceptionally large bust, Kateria Leviathan. Okay, Kateria, we should look for more information of that kind. Everyone present smiled with pure evil, knowing that if they could kill Son Goku, they would create chaos throughout the world. End of chapter. Chapter 8. The problems are finally approaching. Time passed like that river in a flowing current, with the fish swimming in that place without a care in the world. What happened during that time? Well, Goku began acting as the leader of that base. He clearly told Miss Law what had happened, and she was surprised by the request the leaders had made. Seeing that Goku was still a little confused because he didn't quite understand their decision, she explained, blushing slightly, that what they meant was that Goku would only be the temporary leader, since when they won the war they would become the new Maoists, and Goku would become one as well, but only until his future son was old enough to hold that position, as he would have demon blood from one of the two women he was in a relationship with. Goku, having understood all of that, was surprised and blushing slightly looked away. But after a few seconds, he began to feel an electric shock throughout his body. It wasn't fatal, but it worried him a little because he felt that shock at some point in his life, but he couldn't remember it no matter how much he searched his mind to recall it. Goku's routine changed drastically during that time. He had to train Seryorg. The boy had a power boost, controlling the Kaioken to its maximum of 10 times. Misla, who already controlled the creation ability but still had some problems with energy depletion. Serafall, who, upon seeing Misla's training and knowing that this ability was about creation, decided to learn it as well since it would be very useful in her final battle. And Surzech, because being a prodigy. He began to unleash his full potential and with it a small part of his divine energy. Goku stopped farming. He no longer had the time as he also had to dedicate himself to the demon base. With his experience in strategy, he went with Serafall and a group of demons to explore the areas. Surprisingly, the supernatural beings could control their energy and thus diminish it, so things got a bit complicated for Goku, and he had to explore the areas since he didn't know where the descendants were. While exploring, he saw destroyed demon villages and helped all the homeless people, taking them to Misla so she could help them with shelter. Lord Bale also disappeared from the base and issued a statement announcing his withdrawal from the war. Somewhat shocked, the leaders decided to ignore the matter, as the pureblood demons were very elusive and difficult to locate. At this moment, we find ourselves outside the base with Goku, the silver-haired boy accompanied by Serafall. They had just returned from an observation mission. Despite their best efforts to find the enemy leaders, they couldn't locate them at all. It was as if they weren't even in the demon realm. This led them to believe that the enemy leaders were searching for allies for the battle. Goku was a little tired and sore. The electric shocks and numbness continued with increasing intensity, but this only happened when he was with Serafall or Misla, and he didn't understand why. Serafall saw that her hedgehog was worried, so she decided to hug him, resting her head on Goku's chest. The time Goku spent at the base helped Serafall get to know him better. He was undoubtedly a boy without much expression but with good intentions. Goku-chan, what's wrong? You seem very distracted. Don't you like spending time with me? She sarcastically sheds comical tears. It's not that, Sarah-chan, it's just that it seems strange to me that the enemy leaders and their troops haven't appeared. I'm trying to find samples of powerful evil energy in the underworld, but I'm just having trouble locating them. I don't know what to do, Sarah-chan. Sighing wearily, there haven't been any positive results lately. Don't worry, handsome, maybe they're looking for allies. In any case, none of this world can beat you. She said this while pressing him between her voluptuous curves, suffocating the poor soul. Let's go for a walk in the human world, Goku-chan. I'll treat you to ice cream and maybe me too. She whispered the last part, blushing slightly. She wanted them to have a relationship like the one she had with Miss Law. They just slept together without going any further, obviously. Maybe if she started dropping hints, they could finally take the next step towards a formal relationship. Okay, Sarachan, let's go to the human world to get something to eat. They both went off in a magic circle to the human world. In a dark place, a group of demons knelt in front of a small being dressed in black. So all we have to do is go to that sacred planet and steal those scrolls so you can grant us your power, said one of the demons present. That's right, demons. If you do, I'll grant you some of my snakes, and with them you'll gain extra power. But only one of you can go, since the sacred planet is guarded by the Supreme Kais. They are the second highest authority in the divine hierarchy of this universe. These words greatly surprised the demons present. Wait, then they must be incredibly powerful. Stealing those scrolls will be difficult for us. One of the demons spoke fearfully upon learning of the suicide mission. Well, you might consider them strong since they're your superiors, but I don't. The apparent leader spoke with a touch of arrogance, so why don't you steal those scrolls if you say they're not strong enough for you? It's simple, Demon Shalba. If I go after those gods, I'll be forced to kill them. And if I fail, the most powerful god will come to kill me. And if I kill them, someone even more powerful will annihilate us all in this universe. So I have no other option but to send beings with low power so that the Supreme Kaisamas don't notice. Upon hearing such words, the demons felt offended, as they felt their pride had been trampled upon, considering themselves the most powerful race. However, with no other options, they decided to remain silent and say nothing to the expressionless deity before them. All right, Appi's dragon or Roboros, I'll help you find those scrolls you so desperately want. The demon Shalba decided to be the one to infiltrate since, even though he was a demon descendant, he wouldn't let his friend Kateria enter those places. She was his best friend, and if she died, his plans would fall apart. All right, demon, the moment you have what you have been asked to do, use this scroll. With it, you will be able to teleport yourself to me immediately. Without further ado, she teleported the demon to the sacred planet. She already knew the whereabouts of the planets, as she is a dragon of infinity and therefore knew certain techniques that were of great help. When the demon Shalba entered the sacred world, he was immediately under its power. Although the planet had a higher gravity than the underworld, it wasn't entirely bad for the demon, as he was already accustomed to the gravity of his place of origin. He immediately hid in one of the few trees in the area. He needed to observe and analyze this unknown planet, and he saw that it wasn't so different from the human world and the underworld. Was he really in another world? I didn't know that for sure, but I ignored that issue since I had to complete my task quickly. He immediately spotted a small palace in the middle of a beautiful meadow. Undoubtedly, the only difference between this planet and Earth and the underworld was that it was beautiful and well cared for, as if every tree, every blade of grass, even every grain of earth had already been chosen and arranged perfectly. The demon slowly made his way into the meadow, and as he drew closer, he entered the palace. He found himself in a resting room, if one could call it that, given its shape. He gazed in astonishment at the decor. It was beautiful. Not even Lucifer nor Hades possessed anything so elegant and refined. Suddenly, he saw some rather strange figures approaching, resembling elves from Norse mythology. He immediately hid in a room, and luckily they didn't notice him, which made him sigh with relief. Then he heard voices coming from these beings. He could make out an old man with long hair and a younger, muscular man with short hair only on his sides. So you've already studied the history of the universe, not the successor to the North Kaioshin. Yes, Lord Shin, I saw that this is a new universe from a previous one, and furthermore, in that previous universe there were warriors capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the god of destruction. The successor said this with respect and firmness, though deep down he was surprised by such tales. You're right, kid, I had the honor of meeting them. They were good people, but unfortunately one of them had the misfortune of being cursed by the supreme beings. Although, to be honest, he's changed his way of thinking lately. He's no longer against interfering in the universe. I say this because I saw him on Earth and he seems to have a good relationship with some mortals. I just hope that one day he can get rid of that curse. I believe so, Mr. Shin. From what I saw in his story, he's a being who never gives up, and I know that even in the worst of circumstances, he'll find a way. The successor to the North Kai, he said with some enthusiasm. Being a successor, he had to learn various combat techniques, and upon learning about the beings who existed in ancient times, he decided to learn their techniques, and that's how he learned of the existence of his now idol. He was undoubtedly a being of great potential, although he wasn't as his stories described him now. Well, kid, we'd better go check on the state of the North Galaxy and see the Sisters of Destiny. I'll teach you a few things so you'll soon be ready to be the new North Kai. Shin spoke with a touch of happiness at seeing his offspring ready for his duties. Without another word, they left the room, leaving behind a demon who couldn't quite grasp what had happened. Apparently there were more superior gods, just as the dragon had said, and to top it all off, they were in charge of the universe. He believed that the biblical gods Zeus, Vishnu, Buddha, and Odin were the beings with those positions. Being the most powerful, myths were created around them. After spending several minutes processing that information, he decided to take advantage of the fact that those gods were not there at the moment. He started searching everywhere but couldn't find anything. For a moment, he thought the dragon Apis had tricked him with the scrolls. Frustrated, he punched a wall in a library room, and as he made contact, he watched in astonishment as it opened like a normal door. Killing his curiosity, he entered that apparent warehouse. Upon entering, he used some of his magic to illuminate the place. There he saw dozens of scrolls arranged in order. Without further ado, he decided to create a pocket dimension to hold everything he could from that warehouse. After a few minutes, he managed to fit everything inside. Throwing the scroll Apis had given him, the moment he entered the created circle, he saw the KOs storming in furious. They sensed that the warehouse containing all universal information was being altered and were terrified by a tiny, malevolent energy. With no other option, they teleported to the location and watched helplessly as they vanished into a circle they recognized. Before the demon teleported away, he gave them a mocking and arrogant smile, as if they were inferior to him. That damned dragon managed to infiltrate someone without us noticing. The successor to the North Kaio spoke furiously, but he was touched on the shoulder by an old hand, and upon seeing that it was the Supreme Kaio, he calmed down upon learning the reason for that action from Lord Shin. "Calm down, kid, we shouldn't rush things. From what I could see, he's a demon of the late Lucifer, although I'm certainly a little scared because some scrolls contain abilities that can even harm a god." But before they could continue their conversation and possible strategy, they saw an overwhelming divine energy appear out of nowhere. They were undoubtedly terrified. Even the Supreme Shin, who now bestowed experience and calm, was frightened by sensing the one he least wanted to see for millions more years. The two gods immediately left and saw a flash of light fall upon their beautiful meadow, destroying part of it. "I told you to be more gentle." A humanoid being spoke irritably to his companion. "It wasn't my fault you were eager to come here." The companion addressed the humanoid being in a mocking tone. "TSH, don't bother me, Wise, you know this is important." The humanoid being reprimanded his servant with some annoyance at that attitude. "Bills, it's a pleasure to see you again, though I'm surprised you're awake considering your long slumbers." Shin, though terrified by the presence of the god of destruction, managed to hide it. He feared that Bills would disrupt the order that now governed the universe. Even after millennia, Bills remained the same rabid cat with arrogance issues. "Wow, Shin, you've changed a lot, and to answer your question, it was only a few million years, so don't complain. Moreover, because the universe looks different from what I remember, and I also sense more powerful signatures except for those two dragons." "Well, Mr. Bills, many things happened, and without going into too much detail, the ancestor before dying decided to give his life and magic to create a universe where there is balance. Since knowing that you are a bit lazy, he gave life to deities and beings with higher powers than those that existed in ancient times." "And what does that mean, Shin?" Intrigued, Bills looked at his counterpart, eager to learn more about this new universe, one he was completely unaware of due to the drastic change. After the massacre Goku caused, he had decided to sleep for millennia, no longer caring about the universe, believing Goku would take care of its problems. "That means you're almost irrelevant at the moment," the bluish being accompanying Bills answered his questions. While the two deities spoke, he decided to focus on observing the entire story through his staff. Although he already knew about the sacrifice of the ancestor Kaioshin, he didn't attach much importance to the universe since he had no jurisdiction over it. "How can I be irrelevant when I am the most powerful being in this universe?" Bills angrily protested what was happening in his universe. "That's right, Lord Bills. There are deities who maintain the balance of the universe, although there are certainly some who are rebellious, but they are kept in check since, although it is no longer as relevant, it still commands respect because we are in charge of making them aware of their superiors, and every thousands of years we go to see the order of each deity." "Well, that doesn't matter. I'll pay those gods a visit." Changing the subject, "I came here because when I woke up I learned that the damned mortal is still alive, and I want to pay him a visit. But it seems his Kai has dropped to such a low level that even Wise can't find him." The humanoid cat decided to focus on his main intrigue since Wise had informed him that his former disciple was still alive. "Mr. Goku is on planet Earth. I have been observing him, and because I observed him frequently, I was able to find out his whereabouts when he suppressed his Kai." Bills processed that information and then decided to ignore the topic as usual. "And by the way, Shin, before coming here I sensed a demonic presence. What was a demon doing on the sacred planet?" Bills asked, intrigued. He wanted to know about that energy since the sacred planet wasn't a place demons frequented. "It turns out that the dragon Apis infiltrated a demon onto our planet, and since it was a weak energy, we didn't notice it. It stole the scrolls containing all the information about the universe." Shin, feeling quite serious, decided to tell her about his problem. Bills was surprised by the problem Shin was in, although he was intrigued by the reason for Shin's seriousness. They were just old scrolls with the stories of the races and their abilities, or so he thought. And why all the seriousness, Shin, if they're just stories about mortal races? Nothing interesting, right? Certainly, Lord Bills, those scrolls don't just possess that, they also possess deadly techniques. Those techniques can even kill a god and could even leave you seriously injured. Interrupting the conversation, Kaio's successor decided to inform him of the grave situation they were in. Bills was extremely surprised. How could they possess an ability capable of harming him? How do you have a scroll like that? Bills wanted to know about that technique and how it was created. It so happens that your ancestor knew the risk you posed and decided to create a technique that could weaken you so that you would not be a threat to the universe. That damn old man always gets his way. Bills muttered those words in annoyance. That old man was definitely a thorn in his side. Well, it seems you have a long job ahead of you, but that doesn't matter to me. Take me to that mortal to check on his condition. Bills, feigning nonchalance, decided to ignore that topic and focus on the main one. We were just on our way to Goku's to ask for his help with this, Shin said calmly. Maybe Goku has some idea about this problem. After finishing their conversation, they decided to leave the sacred planet and head back to Earth. Meanwhile, in a dark place, a magical seal appeared, white with black sparkles. From it emerged the demon Shalba, smiling with satisfaction at his successful mission. I see you didn't do too badly, Shalba. The Leviathan descendant asked with intrigue about the mission given by the dragon Apis. Certainly, if I were to be caught, it was easy, although I was very close to being caught, everything turned out well. Shalba spoke arrogantly of his mission. Well, that doesn't matter, demons, what I want are the scrolls. Apis, somewhat impatient, interrupted the demon's little chat. Shalba, without reproach, made everything she had stolen appear before Apis. It was a mountain of books and scrolls. Seeing all those books and scrolls, Apis couldn't help but smile. At last, she would know the reason for her existence. Apis gave the snakes to his descendants, allies, and troops. He no longer wanted inferior beings in his home, so he didn't hesitate to hand over what he had agreed upon with the demons. The descendants and troops were already heading to their territory with noticeable arrogance. Shalba was happier than the others, and Kateria watched with intrigue. Having reached their base, only Shalba and Kateria remained, their silence profound. Kateria broke the silence when she saw that Shalba was still happy. It was strange considering the descendants' usual demeanor. Could you tell me the reason for your happiness? Kateria finally broke the silence that was making her uncomfortable. It's nothing, Kateria, I'm just happy because my power has increased enormously. Without further explanation, Shalba withdrew from her throne and headed to her chambers. This undoubtedly confused Kateria greatly, who decided to avoid going into any more detail. Upon entering her chambers, Shalba created a magic circle from which emerged scrolls that appeared to be what the dragon Apis had requested be brought from the supreme planet. When examined, they revealed the following: deadly abilities against gods, a ritual for absorbing vital energy, and the forbidden spell God's Chain. Before handing over the books and scrolls, Shalba glimpsed those words and cautiously moved them away from the others. Now that he possessed those scrolls, he would use them to become the most powerful of all the superior and supreme beings. He no longer cared about the underworld. Now he wanted power and more power, regardless of whether it involved his own friends and troops. Undoubtedly, power corrupts the wielder, and in the case of a demon, it leads to utter madness. On the other, a smiling Apis sat in her chambers, reading the story of her father, who was apparently a dragon god. She was intrigued by his wishes and learned that warriors frequently asked him for things, sometimes foolish and senseless ones. Unfortunately, there were no names for the mortals who made these requests. Upon finishing her reading, she was surprised to learn that she herself had been created thanks to her father's final sacrifice. But there was another dragon who had done the same, creating Gran Red DxD. She had no doubts she had finally learned of her origins. She had definitely needed to know them. After quickly finishing several more books, she decided to store them in a pocket dimension. Suddenly, a book floated out of its pocket, catching Apis' attention. She picked up the old book, which appeared to be several years old, though well-preserved, with yellowed and fragile paper. Upon picking it up, she became interested in the book. The name was strange, very basic, and not at all creative, but that made her find out more since its simplicity caught anyone's attention. Its name was The Z Warriors. End of chapter. Chapter 9. The beginning of hope. A young man with messy hair and a busty young woman were returning from their quick date in the human world. They had seen some things there, such as the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games that year. The two of them were on Mount Fuji, taking in the beautiful view the place offered. Thank you for this minidate, Goku-chan. To be honest, I also needed to get away from the troubles in the underworld. The She-Devil broke the peaceful silence between them. She too truly needed a break. They had spent all that time searching for the demon descendants without any success. In addition, they had to help the lower-class demons in enemy territories. Without a doubt, being a demon at this time wasn't a very pleasant experience in the She-Devil's eyes. You're right, Sarachan, but it would be best to go see Miss Law and Sergeorg. They must be worried about not seeing you this afternoon. Now calmer after these last few days, he decided to go see those he now considers his family. The two were about to go to the underworld when suddenly a pressure was felt in the area, and in the blink of an eye behind the two black-haired men, a flash of light was seen which, as it spread, gave shape to four beings who were looking for the porcupine. I see you haven't changed at all, son Goku. The tallest of them all said those words with a mocking tone, as was always his personality. Mr. Whis. The raven-haired man immediately turned his head upon hearing those words, and when his gaze finally fixed on them, his eyes widened in surprise. He couldn't believe it. He recognized the four people standing before him perfectly. His features quickly reflected pure astonishment. So as I suspected, you're still the same, only from what I can see, you're no longer the airhead I knew. The cat broke the silence, looking at the one who was once indirectly responsible for the genocide of several races. What are you doing here? The now calmer son decided to find out about the presence of the divine beings. I need to speak with you, Mr. Goku. It's extremely important that you know about this problem. The oldest among them all decided to get straight to the point. He didn't have time for greetings and formalities. If the scrolls and books were in the wrong hands, it would be a serious problem for the order of this universe. Who are they, Goku-chan? The devil girl who was next to the sun was surprised to feel the divine power that those four radiated. Without a doubt they were gods, but she did not know them. Stay back, Sarachan, I don't want you to get involved in this. Sun became serious and didn't want anything to happen to his little devil. What do they want? With a serious voice, he decided to find out about this problem. Although he had no intention of interfering in the divine world, he knew he had no other option but to listen to them. Vera Son Goku, a few hours ago we had trouble with a demon from the biblical pantheon. He stole the scrolls and universal books that were in the palace of the sacred world thanks to a dragon, so I need your help to find the culprit. If the scrolls fall into the wrong hands, not only the world but the entire universe will be in danger because of the techniques written in some of them. So please, Son Goku, help me find them. Upon hearing that, Goku became thoughtful. A demon from the biblical pantheon had stolen something in the sacred world. He was wondering who the possible suspect could be, but the only ones capable of such an act immediately came to mind. The descendant demons. He said that aloud and everyone looked at him without exception. The only one who understood what he meant was the she-devil with pigtails. Although she didn't quite understand what they were talking about, she knew it had to do with those demons. It must be them, there's no doubt about it. That's why we could never find them in the underworld. This is serious. They must have been looking for allies for the final war. The son already understood the reason for the demons' disappearance. He had no doubt they were preparing for war. Out of nowhere, a magic red circle appeared in the couple's ears. Son Goku, Serafall, you must come to the underworld quickly. The demon descendants have just appeared out of nowhere. Sercession was very serious about this sudden event. The war had finally begun in the underworld and it was time for a change. We'll go immediately, Sercession. Serafall also became serious. It was about time and she had to make those demons pay for all the trouble they were causing in the underworld. We didn't have time to greet each other properly, but it's best we leave. My apologies, Bills, Wise, Shin, and Apprentice. Goku bid farewell to the deities with a slight bow. I apologize for not introducing myself, gods. My name is Serafall Citri and it was a pleasure meeting you. Serafall, still serious, decided to say goodbye to the deities as well. She had doubts about who they were, but it wasn't the right time. I hope you managed to win, and Goku, please help us find the demon. Shin, somewhat seriously, also said goodbye to them both. In the blink of an eye, the couple disappeared, leaving the four deities alone with nothing to say, but out of nowhere several magic circles appeared and from them emerged the most important gods of each faction. I see you haven't changed a bit, Shin. It's a pleasure to see you again. An old man with long gray hair and a long beard of the same color, wearing a kind of glass eye, was Odin. Of all the gods, it wasn't very often that the supreme god made an appearance. He got along well with Kaio. For being a perverted old man, just like the supreme ancestor Kaio, he pleased Shin because he reminded him of the ancestor when he used to tell him to be. Odin, Zeus, Vishnu, Buddha, Hades, Shiva, Indra. It's a pleasure to see you all again and a pleasure to see you again, Odin. You're still the same old pervert as always. You know that what I adore most of all things is beautiful women that will never change. Odin responded to Shin with a mocking laugh which was reciprocated by the KO. Behind them was a confused Bills, and Wise, seeing his confused face, decided to tell him who they were. Lord Bills, they are the gods I told you about, Shin. Upon hearing that, Bills grinned wildly. Perhaps he'd found a worthy opponent. Wise and Bills decided to present themselves to the minor gods. Shin, seeing that, sighed at the sight of Bills' smile. He was undoubtedly still the same old rabid cat. Let me introduce you. This is Bills, my counterpart. Shin decided to introduce them to avoid any problems. Upon hearing this, the gods understood who Shin was talking about. They all got along well with the Supreme Kai, but when Shin told them about Beerus and his immense power, along with his temper tantrums, they knew they shouldn't irritate the god. They decided to kneel before their superior to avoid unnecessary arguments. I see you've trained the hounds properly, Shin. Bills spoke arrogantly as he stood before the deities. He wanted to see who would get angry and challenge him to a fight, but he was greatly surprised to see that no one grumbled. It seemed they knew him perfectly. A pleasure, Lord Bills. It's good to know you've finally woken from your long slumber. Zeus broke the silence, introducing himself properly. Well, that doesn't matter, let's watch the fight between those demons. Shin decided to speak. It was best if they didn't talk too much with Bills. You're right, it's best to see what happens in that battle. I have a feeling something interesting will happen. Bills responded with interest. He had a feeling something would happen in that fight. If you'd like, I can invite you to my palace. Besides, there will be plenty of food for you, Lord Beerus. Shin told me you have a hearty appetite. Odin decided to invite the scrawny Beerus. Perhaps that would finally get the cat to sleep for another 1,000 years. Faced with that request, Bills agreed to go to Odin's palace. He wanted to see how delicious the food of this new land was, and if it was horrible, he would destroy it along with his gods. Faced with this, everyone went to Gladsheim except for the other gods who decided to go to their pantheons. They did not want to be with Bills and respected Odin for being the only one who seemed not to be afraid of that cat. Already in the underworld, Goku appeared with Serafall outside the anti-Mao base. It seemed there were some new faces for Goku at that base. Surzech and Grafia saw Goku and Serafall arrive, but they were accompanied by some ancient demons who looked at Goku with some unease, eager to meet him since Surzech had given them a report about the ally standing before them. One of the representatives of the 72 demonic pillars stood before everyone. It was Zekrem, the most important leader of the clans. So your son Goku, it's a pleasure to meet you, kid. My name is Zekrem, current leader of the Bale clan. The leader introduced himself with a handshake which son Goku reciprocated. It's a pleasure, Zekrem-sama. Serafall told me about you and the other clan leaders. The son returned the greeting. He knew that the current leader of House Bale was not like his son. I'd like to continue talking with you, son Goku, but it's best to talk after all this is finally over. Without another word, the clan leaders returned to their respective places. They wouldn't fight the Maoists. That was the responsibility of the heirs of the 72 demonic pillars. All the heirs, along with Goku, teleported themselves to different territories to protect them, as it was seen that the anti-Maoists had spread throughout all the territories that were against them. With Sirzch and Graifoye, both landed in front of the Gremory territory alongside their soldiers. Out of nowhere, several magic circles appeared before them. As the magic circles vanished, several soldiers appeared, and before them stood Shalba Beelzebub, accompanied by someone Grafia hated with all her being. It was Lord Lucifuge, her father, the being she had hated most since she could remember. She had been used as a tool while living in the Mao faction. As the years passed, her brother couldn't survive the bloody training they both endured, and from then on, Grafia trained relentlessly to one day avenge herself against her father. She was a person who lived only to kill, but at the beginning of the war between the clans and Mao, she met Surzech in one of the first battles. It was undoubtedly love at first sight. From then on, Surzech saved her, and despite several conflicts with the clan leaders, they were finally able to be together. And today, Grafia will finally exact her revenge on her father for everything he has put her and especially her brother through. Well, if it isn't the little Gremory. It's good to see you're ready to dig your own grave. Shalba arrogantly spoke his first words on the battlefield that in the not-too-distant future would become a field filled with blood and demon entrails everywhere. It's good to know you're still the same arrogant fool I know. I won't let you hurt civilians, so I'll kill you in the name of the blood you've spilled all this time. Without hesitation, Surzech lunged at Shalba, and with him, all the anti-Mao demons turned on their opponent. With a leap, he landed above Shalba and struck with his mace, the blow so powerful the demon couldn't block it and took the full force of it. Giving the Mao heir no respite, Surzech again positioned himself, this time in front of Shalba. Creating a magic circle with Kai energy, he launched the Mao, who was powerless to react to any of his attacks from the super demon. A massive explosion erupted, raising several plumes of dust. As the dust settled, Surzech was seen unharmed, while in the distance, Shalba was badly injured. Undoubtedly, the training he received from Goku during those months of training had served him well, because being a super demon and controlling his own energy gave him a strength and resistance capable of being on par with the former Lucifer. Out of nowhere, he saw several ice spears nearly graze his face. Turning his head, he saw his current partner fighting her father in a bloody battle. He wanted to go help her, but without warning, he received a precise blow to the stomach, courtesy of Shalba, who was acting as if nothing had happened. You thought I was going to die with a simple attack. If you don't go all out, I'll kill you in the blink of an eye. Upon seeing this, Surzech became more serious and without hesitation transformed into his final form, which was a humanoid form of a being entirely black with a crimson-red color, with Sairarg and Misla. Both stood before the Bale clan, for although they had been exiled by their ex-husband/father, they held no grudges, and if they needed help, they would not leave them at the mercy of the enemy. Out of nowhere, several magic circles appeared on the outskirts of Bale territory, and everyone watched in astonishment as the main leader was Lord Bale, who gave a mocking smile to those who looked at him in disbelief. But upon closer inspection, he saw the two people he wanted to kill at all costs, his son and ex-wife. "Well, it seems you were expecting me. I expect nothing from you, especially from you, Serafall. A demon without any demonic power can do nothing against my immeasurable power of destruction. And also Misla, the one who created a monstrosity for the House of Bale." The Bale was very confident that the two were just simple demons who deserved to die. "You're right. I am, or rather, I was a demon considered the lowest of the low. But unfortunately for you, I had two masters who helped me unlock my potential and reveal my true powers, so you'd better not hold back, because today we'll see who will lead the Bale clan." Serafall struck a rather peculiar pose for the lord who was mocking his firstborn, but before saying anything he watched in disbelief as the young man emanated a crimson aura from his body. How is this possible? If you're a demon without any magical power, how can you have the power of destruction? The Lord was furious. How could this be? Those in charge of the delivery had said at birth that he possessed no power whatsoever, that he was merely a low-class demon, the lowest of the low. Serafall gave a somewhat arrogant smile. Seeing his father's astonished face was one of the luxuries an exiled son could desire. "I am simply a Bale heir. Let's just say the reason I wasn't born with the Bale family's powers was because my body couldn't handle them, and that's why my powers were sealed away, waiting for the right moment to emerge. I owe all of this to my master, son Goku, who unlocked my potential through the divine energy that every demon possesses. I also thank my cousin Surzech for teaching me to control this power. Without a doubt, this will prove to you that effort and dedication trump natural talent." In an instant, Serafall launched himself at the Lord, unleashing a flurry of attacks. Some were deflected, but others struck directly. Serafall might not have fully mastered the power of destruction, but unlike the Lord, he possessed an unstoppable fighting style. From now on, the turtle style would forever be with the boy. Seeing that his blows were being deflected and that his power of destruction was having no effect against his firstborn, the Lord noticed Misla helping some soldiers. Without hesitation, he unleashed a power of destruction at Misla, who upon seeing it smiled and displaying his newfound abilities created a giant mace, striking the attack squarely and destroying it with ease. The Lord was enraged. Not only did Serafall possess formidable power, but Misla did as well, and he could not accept it under any circumstances. Kicking Serafall away, he unleashed his final form of destruction with a roar, a form somewhat identical to Surzech's. At the end of the attack, he leaped towards Serafall, striking him repeatedly all over his body and finishing with a blow to the cheek that sent him flying several meters, crashing into a number of enemy and allied soldiers. As Serafall struggled to his feet, he gave a murderous look and began to assume a kick-expansion stance. "I can't fully control this technique, much less fuse it with the energy of destruction, but I'll do whatever it takes to humiliate you." Serafall began to raise his Kai along with his aura of destruction, and after a few seconds he dispelled his destructive aura. Upon seeing this, Bale was about to mock his firstborn for such a comedic act, but suddenly he saw Serafall give a sanctimonious smile and in an instant utter a few words. "Kaioken." Like an explosion, Serafall let out a shout, unleashing a surge of red Kai that filled the entire area. As it dissipated, a large red aura appeared alongside a crimson one. The two danced together around Serafall, who, with a gladiatorial roar, launched himself at his father, beginning an unforgettable battle in the eyes of all. Even Misla, who watched as her son, now a grown man, remembered holding her own son in her arms, now fighting for the title of Bale. With Serafall and Goku. Both were on the outskirts of Citri territory, guarding it. Suddenly, several magic circles appeared, and the soldiers emerged from them along with Katarina and Rizvim. They all remained silent, looking at each other with no intention of giving in. "I see you're still the same busty loli as always. I hope you're ready to die, Citri." The one who broke the silence was Katarina, who partly harbored a hatred for Serafall. "Don't think I'm the same as before. I've trained alongside Goku all this time, and I won't let his training be in vain." As Serafall finished speaking, Katarina noticed a certain white-haired boy who was staring blankly at Rizvim. "So that boy is son Goku. Our infiltrators told us about him, and from what I can see, you're quite fond of him. So when I kill you, Serafall, I'll make that cute boy my hex slave." Katarina found him attractive, so without hesitation she would make him one of her servants and hex slaves. Serafall flew into a rage, determined not to let just anyone harm her white-haired hero. Without hesitation, she lunged at Katarina, creating several circles of water and ice from which spears of water and ice burst forth, brimming with Kai energy. She launched these spears at Kateria, who managed to deflect them with great difficulty. Thus began an unprecedented battle between the two women who controlled water. With Goku, he stared intently at Rizvim, who also did not look away. "Tell me, why did you decide to intervene in this war? You're not a demon, and from what I can tell, you're not from any pantheon either. So answer me, what are your intentions with the demons?" "Well, the truth is I hadn't planned to interfere in your affairs, but I have to protect my loved ones, and I won't let you destroy the peace of this world. So if you plan to harm this world, I will kill you without hesitation." Without a doubt, Goku answered the demon's questions. He didn't want his loved ones to go through trouble in his world. If he had to kill, he would do it no matter who it was. I don't understand these demons who dare to rebel against the Maoist descendants. We are demons, and we must live up to that title by being pure evil, so if you interfere with my plans, I will not hesitate to kill you too. Without another word, the demon launched himself at Goku, unleashing a barrage of attacks and magic circles, which Goku masterfully dodged. Several minutes had passed since the final war began. Most were already winning the battle against the descendants. Goku began to counterattack, hitting him without giving him any respite. Seeing this, Rizvim was getting excited. A complete stranger was humiliating him, and if that wasn't enough, his opponent showed no signs of fatigue. With no other plan, he decided to separate from Goku, who, once separated, saw his companion being pierced by an ice spear from Serafall. Furious, he launched an attack at Serafall, who, caught off guard, couldn't react to the unexpected blow, resigning herself to the attack. But to her great surprise, she felt nothing. Opening her eyes, she saw that the one standing before her was her beloved spiky-haired boy. As the attack dissipated, Goku glared furiously at the demon with murderous intent. Attacking someone from behind was cowardly, and not only that, the person he wanted to kill was one of the people he cared about most. Without hesitation, the spiky-haired man appeared in front of Rizvim and fearlessly pierced his chest with his hand, killing the insignificant demon in an instant. Turning his head, he went to Serafall, taking her chin in his hand. "Are you all right?" Goku, somewhat worried, looked at Serafall to see if anything had happened to her, but in an instant he was kissed by the pigtail demon, who was thanking Sun for helping him avoid his death. Goku could only return the kiss. The others were already finishing their battles. Ajuka easily defeated Crusory Asmodeus. Although Ajuka seemed carefree and lazy, he was one of the super demons in the biblical pantheon. Seryorg, with great effort, defeated his father with an attack he created. It was a combination of the Kamehameha and the energy of destruction. Miss Law defeated all the enemy soldiers and helped by creating weapons and first aid kits for the allied soldiers. Afterward, they decided to go to where Goku was, with Surzech. The super demon was fighting Shalba. The Mao descendant possessed more power than usual, so he had a close fight against the super demon, but unfortunately for him, Surzech managed to gain the upper hand and began to severely injure him. Shalba lay on the ground badly wounded while Surzech stood before him in his final form. "Any last words, Shalba?" "Oh yes. Thank you for the energy." Surzech was confused by those words, but in an instant his magical and life energy was being absorbed. The super demon knelt, beginning to lose his final form, and fainted instantly. Shalba, having absorbed all the energy, stood up as if nothing had happened. His wounds had healed and his energy rose tremendously. The demon, in the midst of the fight, was able to create a symbol on Surzech's arm, achieving his goal against the super demon. "Be grateful, Surzech, that this ability is more effective against the dead, but you still won't be able to wake up. It seems everyone is dead. This is for the best. I'll be able to absorb all those who are dead thanks to the seals I placed on them before coming here." With a psychopathic look, Shalba surrounded herself with flies and in the blink of an eye vanished, leaving Surzech badly wounded. Grafia didn't notice since she had just killed her father, and when she went to her partner, she saw that he was unconscious without Shalba's presence. The demon, still injured, ran to her loved one, and seeing that he did not respond, decided to create a magic circle and go to where Son Goku was. Everyone arrived where Son Goku was to end the war. A worried Grafia went to the pointy-haired boy, and when she was in front of him with Surzech in her arms, she was going to inform him of what had happened, but suddenly Shalba appeared, flying while surrounded by flies. "I see that you all managed to defeat my allies and troops, but let me tell you something. This was all planned. My plan was for everyone to die so I could do this." In one swift motion, he opened his hands in a pose of superiority. In an instant, several trails of light began to emanate from the bodies of all the dead soldiers and their descendants. These lights were directed towards Shalba. Goku couldn't believe it. That technique absorbed all the energy of the dead, along with the souls that still lingered in their lifeless bodies. The demon's power increased exorbitantly, since, in addition to using the seals on all the descendants and soldiers, he was able to seal the snakes that had been given to him by Apis. All that combined power was able to create a demon capable of easily defeating all the gods together, who had the magical strength of a SSJ-3 at its maximum capacity. When Shalba finished his presentation, he looked defiantly at Goku, who didn't hesitate to follow his gaze and in the blink of an eye was already in front of the demon. So your son Goku. My informants told me your power was unimaginable, but let's see if you can stand against my new power. The son just stared at him seriously. He found the one he robbed in the sacred world. So you were the one who stole the scrolls and books from the sacred planet. Do you know that if you did that, the gods will kill you without hesitation? So you'd better return them to where they belong. The son wanted to know where the demon had stolen what he had, but the demon ignored him and struck the Saiyan, who dodged with great skill. The sound simply hit him in the face, separating him by a few meters. Shalba could only hold the place where he had been hit with one hand. You think I'll return that information? With what I have, I can dominate not only the world but the entire universe, so you'd better back down because I'll never return it, even if I die for it. Without exchanging any other words, they both launched into a fight. Shockwaves rippled throughout the underworld. Azazel, who was in Gregory, part of the underworld's territory, watched in astonishment as these shockwaves resonated even within his own realm. He stationed several fallen angels to guard the entrance to Gregory, knowing that if the Maoist descendants were to triumph, a war between the three biblical factions would erupt. He could only hope that whoever fought against the descendants would win and that there would be peace since he was not a fan of wars, but he would not let his people suffer in darkness. The blows were exchanged. Goku had the advantage because although Shalba currently possessed exorbitant magical power, he was only at 10% of his Super Saiyan God form. Out of nowhere, Goku punched Shalba, sending him to the ground and leaving a large crater about 100 meters wide. The sound slowly descended where the injured demon lay. Undoubtedly, if he weren't an evil being, he would be a good rival. Your last words, boy. The demon in front wanted to know if he would recant and give him information about the whereabouts of the scrolls and books. Yes, I just want to say something very important. Shalba, badly hurt, was able to utter those only words. What are you going to say? Say it quickly. God's training. What does that shit mean? Goku looked at the demon, confused. What the hell was he talking about? Before he could say anything else, Goku was surprised by a magic circle on his chest. Upon seeing it, he saw some flies landing on his chest. Before he could say anything else, the sun was suddenly encased in chains before everyone's incredulous eyes. His energy began to unstable, lightning began to shoot from his body. It was like that time, but unlike the tournament, this time it was more extreme. His ultra instinct disappeared in an instant, leaving him in his base state. What the hell is going on? The son's words were almost inaudible. He didn't understand the reason for this strange ability. It was the laughter of the demon Shalba who managed to get up after that beating. It seems your energy was already unstable and it was easier for me to use that ability. The drain wasn't as excessive as the scroll said, and I think I should thank you for that. Without hesitation, Shava struck Goku's torso with a kick, sending him flying several meters. After that, he slowly approached Sun, who was still screaming from the pain caused by those chains. And to make matters worse, the instability of his energy showed no signs of abating. You know, I was thinking of stealing your energy like I did with Surzech. But when I tried, I saw that your energy was somewhat unstable. So the best way to defeat you was by using that ability that destabilizes and seals the energy of anyone. No matter if you are a deity or a mortal, that ability can do everything. Although it causes massive drain and leaves you on the verge of death, it is very effective. Shava lifted Goku up and this time struck Goku's stomach with too much force, piercing through it. As he pulled his hand out, he created a magic circle to end Goku's death. But in the blink of an eye, Serajorg punched Shava in the face, sending the descending demon reeling. Seeing this, Misla and Serafall grabbed Goku and carried him away. Once he was off the battlefield, they tearfully began cleaning his wounds, but to their great surprise, Goku's stomach wasn't pierced. Even so, Goku was unconscious, which left the women dismayed. Did he have a regeneration like the Phoenix? Besides, they just noticed that the white-haired one's hair was no longer white but now jet black. More doubts arose in both of them. They didn't know him very well and never thought he had that ability. Doubts and more doubts were generated with Serajorg. He stood before Shava, who regarded him with superiority. Suddenly, the others arrived to aid Serajorg. One of them was Surzech, who, thanks to Serajorg's destructive power, was able to destroy the seal on the demon's hand. With Tears of Phoenix, most of them recovered from their battles. I see the heirs rebelling against their new king. I should kill them for this disrespect. Even though he was tired and injured, the demon could still kill them. We will not allow you to interfere with the prosperity of the underworld. We will do whatever it takes to finally kill you. Surzech Sirius would kill Shava. He knew he was in a league of his own, but he wouldn't let thousands of demons perish because of someone as stubborn as Shava. The other heirs followed Surzech, shouting in unison. Whatever happens, they will not die without at least putting up a fight. They all charged at the enemy demon. Those who were distant specialists like Roygun and Grafia stood far away and began to cast magic circles, while those who were good at fighting like Serajorg, Surzech, and Ruvel rushed at Shalba. Blows and explosions were what could be heard throughout the battlefield. Many heirs were being easily struck, some even perishing, but they did not surrender. They had to win at all costs. With Son Goku. Where am I? Son Goku was currently in a completely dark astral plane. There was nothing. Son Goku. An imposing voice resounded in that place. Without a doubt, the Saiyan recognized that voice and was afraid that the same thing would happen again. Are you Mr. Daishinkan? That's right, Son Goku. I've come with you because the Xeno-samas and I have seen your fight, and we have a proposal for you, Son Goku. A proposal? What's it about? It was strange. In all these thousands of years, the primordial gods had never proposed anything to him. He even thought that the gods had forgotten about him. What is the proposal about, Mr. Daishinkan? We have seen everything you have done over these millennia, so we will give you two options. Either you return to your old life with your old friends without any curse and forget everything that has happened and all of this would never have existed, or you return to this life with the curse and save all those demons and also save this world from its imminent doom. The choice is yours, Son Goku. You must know the consequences of your choice, so think it through carefully. Son was taken aback by the Xeno-sama's proposal. At last, he would be able to see his family again and none of this would happen. He would return to his old life. He was happy, very happy, or so I thought. What should I do? On one hand, his family, his friends, his rival, his old life, he will see all of that again and none of it will happen. But Serafall, Misla, Sergeorg, Surzech, Ajika, Grafia, those people who in the short time they knew him were kind, he would never see them again. What should he do? His mind was troubled. Turning around, he could see in a projection on that astral plane that Misla and Serafall were with tears in their eyes, suffering. Seeing the person they loved in a coma was not something they liked. As he focused his gaze more closely, he saw behind Serafall and Misla all the clan heirs being beaten, several already lying lifeless on the ground. He saw Sergeorg and Surzech rise, still injured, their bruises and bleeding profusely. Even so, they didn't give up. It undoubtedly reminded him of himself with his friend and rival. Daishinkan was watching the back of the sun, waiting for him to choose his answer wisely. Lord Daishinkan, what should I do? The son hoped that the father of the angels would give him a sincere answer, one that would help him through this emotional crisis. You know, Son Goku, I can't help you with this, but the only thing I would tell you is to follow your heart, be yourself. Think about everything you have lived through and will live through. Only you can be the one to change your destiny. The son gave a faint smile, being myself. I want to help this world, please Daishinkan-sama, I choose option 2. The son turned his gaze towards the priest who was crying. He no longer had the ultra instinct and his emotions which he had kept hidden for millennia finally surfaced. He would stop being selfish, help this new world, and help his two beloveds, his disciple and his new friends. The priest could only smile. At last, the son was able to fulfill the Xeno-sama's wish. All right, Son Goku, you can return to that place. Just let me tell you that you'll have 2 minutes to use your powers. Unfortunately, that ability destabilized your energy, and since I'm just a being, I can't help you beyond giving you that time. Suddenly, Son was blinded by a great trail of light, which, when it dissipated, revealed Misla and Serafall weeping, trying to rouse him. But when they saw him open his eyes, their emotions overwhelmed them, and in an instant they embraced him tightly, refusing to let go, believing he would never be able to get up again. Sorry for scaring you girls, I'll never leave you. He stroked each of their cheeks and kissed each of them. I wish I could stay like this longer, but I must end this quickly. My time won't last much longer. The women clinging to his chest didn't understand what he meant, but in an instant the sun vanished from his arms. Sensing this, they saw the sun flying toward the battlefield. They tried to stop him, but he was faster than they could be. On the battlefield, Surzech was being held by the neck by Shalba, while Sergeorg was being crushed by the descending demon. They no longer had strength, their only hope was that a miracle would happen. That part is funny, considering that they are demons and miracles did not exist for them. I won't forgive you, you bastard. You killed several demons, and not only that, you killed Grafia. I'll kill you, insect. Surzech launched a kick towards Shalba, who already had a magic circle prepared to decapitate the Grim. Before the descendant demon could do anything, Shalba was grabbed by his head and slammed to the ground, releasing the two demons who were at the descendant's mercy. When he got up, he could see Son Goku in front of him. I see you can still get up, Son Goku. You surprise me, but this time I will kill you. The Saiyan went into his blue state. He didn't have time to humiliate him, so the only way was by using his full power. Suddenly they began to fight. It was more of a massacre of the descendant demon. His bones and muscles were torn apart, his face was unrecognizable, his vision blurred, and even his mouth was swollen. He knew the demon wouldn't give him any quarter. He managed to break free and was preparing his best attack. Seeing this, the demon used his most well-known technique. He couldn't stop, he had 30 seconds left. KMEH. In a gladiator's cry, he launched his attack on the demon. He had to kill him at all costs. The demon watched as his attack was dissolved at the mere touch of the sound. It was the end for him. From a heartrending scream, he faded away to ashes. The survivors watched as Goku's attack killed Shava. They had finally won. Goku saw several clan heirs and soldiers on the verge of death. He still had 1 minute and 20 seconds left. He remembered something. Perhaps with this technique he could bring many people back to life. In one swift motion, he spread his arms and legs to opposite sides, his aura shifted to a blazing red, and his hair changed from blue to red. In an instant, red particles began to erupt across the battlefield. No one understood what he was doing, but as the particles reached each of them, their bodies were enveloped by his aura. In an instant, they began to see their wounds, bleeding, even amputated limbs return to their former state. But their surprise was even greater when they saw those who had perished rising, incredulous at what was happening. Only the enemies lacked this aura, for Shalba, having stolen their souls, rendered them non-existent. As the particles disappeared, the sound descended to the ground in its ground state. Everyone went with him, cheering and thanking him for everything. Some women even shouted for him to be their fiancé, but certain women glared at them with murderous eyes, and seeing this, the women decided to remain silent. Serjorg, Ajuka, Surzech, and Grafia perched beside the sun with smiles. All this was finally over. Wow, Maestro, you certainly have many skills. That's right, Son Goku, I must thank you for helping us in this war. Without you, we would have perished. Ajuka was happy. He was ready to go to sleep after this long fight. I feel the same way, Son Goku. Thank you so much for helping us with this. I'm eternally grateful. Surzech spoke up, genuinely thanking Goku for what he had done, especially for reviving Grafia. It's okay, guys, it's best to head back to base. The Son responded with a smile, which surprised everyone because of this change in attitude. They immediately noticed that he no longer had white hair and his eyes were onyx black. Before they could say anything, two women flashed by in a flash of light, knocking the spiky-haired guy off his feet. Ouch, that really hurt. Goku was somewhat stunned by that. He hadn't seen it coming at all. Goku-chan, are you alright? I thought I'd lost you. Serafall was in tears. She didn't want anything to happen to her hedgehog-chan. Goku-kun, I'm so glad you're okay. I thought I'd never see my spiky-haired boy again. Miss Law was overjoyed that he was unharmed. She had been afraid something might happen to the one who had saved her life. Hehe, I'm glad you like me like this, but it's better to go to base to go back home. Both Shedevils nodded to the music with smiles, and as they stood up they began to walk, one on each arm. But suddenly the sun crashed to the ground, instantly losing consciousness. Goku, Gyokeiyu. 2 weeks have passed since Goku fell unconscious. Sun was in Citri territory because Serafall wanted Goku to wake up as soon as possible and be among the first to witness it. All of Goku's acquaintances visited him frequently. Miss La stayed at the Citri mansion to care for her spiky-haired daughter alongside Serafall. Serjorg, after defeating his father, was summoned by Zekram, who was unaware of what had happened to his grandson, as the war had prevented him from attending to the family. Zekram apologized and asked Serjorg to be the heir, as the Vapula clan would be stripped of its power without one. With no other option, Serjorg now had to live in Bale territory. He frequently visited his master to check on him, and also his mother and Aunt Serafall, both of whom were very sad and going through difficult times. This undoubtedly reminded Serjorg of his mother's Coma as well as his master's. He felt helpless seeing the one who had helped him so much in such a state and vowed to do anything to bring his master back to normal. Serjorg, Grafia, and Ajuka also frequented Citri territory to see if he would awaken. They owed him their lives, or rather, everyone owed him their lives. The ancient demons waited for him to recover. All the demons in the underworld were watching their savior. Ajuka was working on a project to help Goku. He began his research and realized there was a way for Goku to recover. After further investigation, he created the evil pieces, a set of 15 chess pieces with malevolent intent. Several more experiments were needed before the reincarnations could be fully realized. About 5 months passed. The ancient demons at that time decided that the new Maoist would be Surzech, Ajuka, and Serafall. They wanted to give the title of Asmodeus to Goku, since during a meeting with Surzech they learned that he had saved and revived the dead. They wanted him to hold the title of Asmodeus because they saw that he was capable of organizing and motivating everyone, no matter what, so he would be in charge of the military, although they had to find out if Goku wanted the position. They learned that Ajuka was working on a reincarnation project for Goku, and if everything went well, he would be considered a demon god in the underworld. So until Goku awoke, Serafall and Miss La took charge of the military. Miss La and Serafall held on to the hope that Goku would awaken, especially after learning that Ajuka was involved in a reincarnation project. They wouldn't give up and would wait even if years passed. In a beautiful area with extensive grass and flowers surrounding a cherry tree stood a spiky-haired man next to a raven-haired woman. It was Milk who was talking to her former husband. So the primordial gods gave you those options. Milk, somewhat surprised, listened to everything Daishinkan told her. Yes, Milk, I'm sorry I didn't choose option 1, but I couldn't let them die. Don't worry, my Goku, you and I already had our moment. Although they are beautiful memories, it's best if they remain just that beautiful memories. Besides, our story has ended. It's better for you to create a new one with your new family. Milk, what do you mean by I'm done? It's like you're saying goodbye. That's it, my Goku, I'm saying goodbye. I asked Wise to let my soul reside in all my loved ones until they no longer need me. You were the only one missing, and finally my time has come. Perhaps I'll reincarnate in this world or another, but rest assured that my heart will never forget you, my Goku. Milk looked at her former husband. It was time to leave, and she could only manage a smile on the woman's perfect face. Goku couldn't believe it. This would be the last time he would see his ex-wife, and although it hurt like never before, he couldn't reproach the action of the woman who had once given everything for him. Tears flowed unconsciously from both of them. They were sad but happy at the same time. It would be their last meeting, but they knew that both would be all right, no matter how much distance existed between them. Without hesitation, they shared a tender kiss, a feeling that though millennia may pass will never fade. As the kiss unfolded, Milk began to dissolve into tiny particles that with each passing second dispersed and became one with nature. When he stopped feeling Milk's lips, he simply opened his still crystalline eyes, deciding to look at the horizon with a nostalgic smile, remembering everything he had experienced with Milk, staying in that cherry tree. So these are the evil pieces you created. Serafall asked about Ajuka's invention, surprised. She never thought she'd see that with it. Any race could be reincarnated as a demon. Yes, Serafall, it took me months of experimentation to achieve this result. Furthermore, with this we can increase the number of demons. Extinction will no longer be a problem. Ajuka was very pleased with his creation. Without a doubt, his intelligence is among the best in the underworld. They were with Goku's acquaintances in the room where the spiky-haired boy was in a coma. It was time to test the evil pieces on Goku. Ajuka landed beside the unconscious Goku and began to place the king piece into his chest in time with the rhythm. After a ritual, they watched as the piece was buried deep in his chest, but less than a second later it was expelled, confirming that the piece could not mutate within the spiky-haired boy's body. Everyone was sad. There was no way Goku would return. The most affected were Miss La and Serafall. All their hopes were dashed. That piece cannot mutate with Son Goku because it doesn't possess enough magical power to combine with his life energy. A calm yet imposing voice echoed throughout the room, putting everyone present on alert. Who are you and what do you want? Serjorg became serious. He didn't want anything to happen to those present. Don't worry, Sir Serjorg, my name is Daishinkan, Supreme Priest. Suddenly, everyone saw a portal appear in the middle of the room. Daishinkan emerged, calm as always. Everyone was terrified by the immense aura he generated. None of the gods they knew possessed such an imposing presence. Don't worry, I haven't come here to do anything evil to you. I observed you and saw that you created some interesting pieces, but unfortunately, without the necessary magical power, Son Goku cannot be reincarnated. Too much magical power is needed for that. Everyone calmed down as they watched the one standing in front of them lose his aura and imposing divinity. So what should we do? It's all the magic power I could gather for the king piece. Ajuka spoke helplessly. All the months of hard work and effort had been in vain. To be honest, I was going to awaken Son Goku at the request of the great Zenasama, but I saw that you all found a way, so I decided to just observe you. You all really surprised me, especially you, Mr. Ajuka. Don't underestimate your efforts. After the high priest said that, he took the king pieces that were resting on Son Goku and creating a magical aura in the palm of his hand, fused it with the king piece. No one could believe it. In that aura created by that little blue man, there was an exorbitant magical power. But who are you? You're not a demon, but you still have demonic magic. Surzech, incredulous, managed to ask about the origin of this little man. It's simple, Demon Surzech. As the Supreme Priest, I possess all the abilities in the universe. No matter what kind of magic it is, if it's under the jurisdiction of the great Zenasama, I will have it. Daishinkan responded to the demon's question while returning the king piece to its position. Mr. Ajuka, please perform the reincarnation ritual again. Ajuka could only nod at the high priest's words, beginning the ritual that lasted a few minutes. When the ritual was over, everyone remained expectant about what had happened. The ones who were getting impatient were Miss La and Serafall, who couldn't take their eyes off her spiky hair. Suddenly, Goku began to slowly open his eyes with a somewhat tired look. He was able to sit up in bed, and once he was up, he saw familiar faces. But before saying anything, Miss La and Serafall hugged each other over the ebony-haired boy, putting their faces on his chest, who was still somewhat dazed. Suddenly, she felt water on her chest, and when she saw what was happening, she saw both Shedevils crying in her lap. Goku-kun, sniff, it's good to know you're awake now, sniff, sniff. I thought, Goku-chan, sniff, that you wouldn't wake up again, sniff, sniff. Goku could only manage a sad smile. It pained him to see them both like that. Forgive me, girls, this won't happen again, I hope you'll forgive me. Taking both of the devils by the chin, he kissed each of them and finished with his signature smile. The two she-devils couldn't hold it in any longer and returned to Sun's lap, beginning to cry even harder. It was undoubtedly a touching moment, witnessed only by Goku's acquaintances. Cough cough. Daishinkan had to fake a cough because he needed to talk to Son Goku. "Excuse me, Mr. Goku, but I need to talk to you about something important." The son saw Daishinkan with the others, and his surprise could not be expected because the father of the angels being here is something to be surprised about. "Lord Daishinkan, it's a pleasure to see you, but what brings you here?" "It's about his problem, so please could you leave us alone with Mr. Goku." They all looked at him somewhat undecided, but then they saw the sound of him giving them a smile that implied they should leave him alone. The ones who didn't leave were Miss La and Serafall, who refused to be separated from Goku for anything in the world. At that, Goku sighed and told Daishinkan not to worry about the two women. Perhaps it was time to reveal their origins to them. "Son Goku, remember that the great Zenasama gave you two options." Son could only nod in response. Well, the truth was that if you chose the wrong punishment, it wouldn't be removed for thousands of years. Goku couldn't believe it. It meant that if he chose to return to his old life, his curse would remain, but he didn't understand. Why would Zeno do that? But why did the Zenos give those options? It's simple, Son Goku. If you chose to return to your old life, leaving everyone at the mercy of your enemy, you would be considered selfish. The purpose of the curse was for you to learn to choose wisely. When you asked for the universal tournament, you were selfish and only thought of yourself, not the lives of other beings. That's why Zeno, seeing that you stopped wandering the universe and dedicated yourself to protecting this world, decided to give you those two options. He couldn't believe it. If he chose wrong, he would condemn everyone he now considered family. But then, what would happen to his curse? So if I met Zenasama's expectations, what will happen to me? That's why I came, Mr. Goku. The Zenasamas asked me to bring you back from your coma, and I was going to do it, but I saw that your friends were looking for a way to revive you, so I stayed watching them until today when I had to intervene because they still couldn't help you. And now, by the power granted to me by the Omni Kings, you, Mr. Goku, will be blessed by them, being freed from your curse. At that, the high priest snapped his fingers, and in the blink of an eye the sound was enveloped in a trail of light, frightening the she-devils who were perched on his chest as they listened to it with disbelief. After a few seconds, the light began to break into a shell, leaving Goku incredulous because finally what had been eating him up so much was gone from his life. "That's all I had to do here, Son Goku. By the way, Mr. Goku, I sealed Ultra Instinct from you. If you use it again this time, you'll die from using it for too long. Besides, you're the same age as your companions now that you're half-demon." With nothing more to say, Daishinkan disappeared into a portal, leaving the three of them in silence. The two she-devils were about to ask him everything about what had happened, but in a sudden movement they were embraced by the son, who couldn't believe it. He was too happy and wanted to share it with his loved ones. They could only hug the raven-haired boy while caressing him. They knew that the son was experiencing a range of emotions at that moment. After a few minutes they separated from that long but touching hug. "So now you can tell us what happened, Goku-kun." Miss Law wanted to know about the incident. She didn't understand anything and needed answers. The busty loli simply nodded somewhat seriously at her friend's words. Goku could only sigh. Sooner or later he would have to reveal his secret, and since they were important to him, he couldn't lie to them at this moment. The son simply placed his hands on the heads of the two she-devils who didn't understand what was happening. But before they could ask, they saw images of the son's life, his childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. They saw his bloody battles and above all, how he was cursed by the primordial beings and how he wandered aimlessly through the universe. As those images that had been running through their heads finally faded, their tears soon appeared and they hugged him without any fear. Could anyone remain psychologically stable after such events? Death is inevitable, but to witness the impossibility of dying and above all to see what you loved most, what you built, crumble away, leaving only shadows in the place you once called home, that was horrifying. Deep down, they would do anything so that their son could live as he always wanted. To build a family, to live peacefully, to be a grandfather, and to die knowing that his legacy would never be forgotten. Undoubtedly, several emotions were generated in that place. The light that entered through the window overlooking the place was like something out of a story where souls could finally be together and an ending was taking place. The three embraced with so much love, each one had and will have the support of the other. Their lives will go for the better no matter what obstacles arise. A curse may be partly bad, but if you face it and go through those shadows, you will see that a blessing was built from that curse. End of chapter. Epilogue. In a mansion in the Citri territory, a man with spiky blonde hair and blue eyes was looking out the window of his bedroom. He gazed at the horizon with a nostalgic smile, remembering how he came to be in that place. Goku narrates. Years have passed since that moment when I was able to feel what it is like to be immortal again. I may not have been granted Zenasama's blessing at the time of being cursed, But from that moment on I felt alone like trash wandering aimlessly in the vast universe. Having finally returned to life as a mortal that day, I had to reveal certain things to my acquaintances. I didn't reveal much, only telling them that I had been cursed by the primordial being because of a mistake, and that before that I had lived a normal life. They didn't object as they must know it's a delicate matter. During that recovery time, my companions asked me to keep my SSJ transformation. It seems they fell in love with that state when I showed them my memories. With a nervous laugh, I went back to my blonde state, and now I consider it my base form. When I fully recovered from my energy instability, I was summoned to a meeting with the 72 pillars. I honestly thought they'd be rather strict, being ancient demons, but what a surprise it was to get to know them better. It even seemed like the ancient demons had more life than their heirs, like Lord Gremory, who on more than one occasion recommended I have a larger harem. I didn't know what that word meant, but I had a vague idea it referred to women. My companions glared at him murderously when Lord Gremory suggested it. Without a doubt, Miss Law and Serafall have been taking good care of me since I woke up, even though I've told them I have nothing left. They don't care and treat me like a child. Zekram, the main leader of the clan of the 72 Pillars at the meeting, thanked me for what I did for the underworld and also apologized to me and Miss Law for the matter of his son. He was undoubtedly sorry for the evil his heir had done. In the middle of that meeting, Zekram asked me to please assume the title of Demon Asmodeus. They needed someone worthy to ensure their troops were among the best. At first, I refused. I wanted a peaceful life. But then I remembered how my selfishness had caused me so much trouble. Perhaps life isn't just about fighting, and there are many ways to achieve peace. With a sigh, I accepted his proposal. After all, it wouldn't be so bad to help the demons at this time, especially if the lives of my two beloved ones were in danger. After that meeting, Sarachan's parents suggested we live with them. Now that we were leaders, we'd have to spend more time in the underworld until everything was in order. Miss Law had no objection, so I didn't refuse. The house where I lived became a place of rest. Whenever I felt tired, I went there to relax. That same night we stayed at that mansion. I wasn't into luxuries, but I have to admit the place was beautiful. Without realizing it, the two women next to me turned off the lights, and when I turned around, they were completely naked. My primal instincts surfaced, and that whole night was pure love and lust. We didn't rest until the next morning when both women passed out. I never thought my primal instincts would act that way. I did with milk, but not in such a lustful way as with these two devils. Years passed, and now that I was an Asmodeus, I had to take charge of the soldiers. I gave them training in energy control and combat techniques. I taught them the basics because if I taught all my techniques, some might misuse them. About a few months ago, I had the greatest happiness of my life. 2 children were born after several failed attempts because the demons had problems with the issue of offspring. It was difficult for them to give birth to a firstborn. Without a doubt, if you asked me if I wanted to cease to exist, I would think twice. About 4 hands grabbed me by the waist, and when I looked to my sides, they were the 2 women I loved the most. I see you're very thoughtful, Goku-chan. What are you thinking about? Yes, Goku-kun, what are you thinking about? Don't worry, my loves, I was just thinking about how beautiful you are and the life I have now. Moo, don't embarrass us like that, Goku-chan. Yes, Goku-kun, you always embarrass us. Hehe, excuse me. He took them both in his hands, giving each one a kiss and concluding with a hug between the 3 of them. Goku-chan, we should try to create new offspring again, you know demons are scarce now. With a mischievous look, the now Leviathan gazed at her man with carnal desires, which made Miss Law look the same mischievous. Cough, cough. A fake cough was made by Miss Law's first son. I think I'm interrupting something, Serajorg said with a mocking look as he watched the 2 women blush. He loved doing that, he'd never lose those habits. You always interrupt at the best moments, Serajorgshan. With comical annoyance, Serafall reproached her Sanchin since now she was like a second mother to the Bale. Hehe, sorry to bother you, but Sotin and Gotten are crying and not even Kuisha can quiet them down. Serajorg spent time with his siblings because he was happy to have little brothers and sisters. Okay, we'll go see them. Miss Law and Serafall were the first to leave the room, leaving Serajorg and Goku behind as they walked together towards the exit. You really are a little devil, Dad. Serajorg mockingly broke the silence between them. After they became family, Serajorg started calling him Dad because he was the only one who supported him since they met, which Son never resented because he liked the boy. Don't bother Serajorg and let's go see your brother and sister instead. He gave a slight smile at Serajorg's jokes. Serajorg just laughed mockingly as they both disappeared down the hallway, leaving the room empty. If you looked closely, you could find a small framed photograph. Upon closer inspection, you could see 4 happy people, Miss Law, Serafall, Goku, and Serajorg. They were all dressed elegantly as if they were the bride and groom, and indeed they were. Goku, Serafall, and Miss Law were married, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Sun's story. End of chapter.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.